Topping Talks. 105 hours a week can't be beat. Welcome to Topping Talks. Topping Talks is a Topping Tribune production, and today's episode is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies and ExpressVPN. Topping Talks is also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I say your founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, are you part of the 3.6% of Americans who still care about their privacy? If you are, then perfect. ExpressVPN can assist. Even though 96% of stats are made up on the spot, ExpressVPN gives a 100% guarantee via the 30-day back money guarantee. Now, without further ado, today I'm proud to say I'm interviewing Jimmy Ford, who is the Enterprise Sales Architect at Envision Healthcare. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jimmy.
Thank you for having me.
So winding back the clock a couple of years, how did you first get into IT?
Got in IT a long time ago when technology became ubiquitous in the consumer space. You know, VIC 20, Commodore 64, Amiga 500, getting on BBSs, stirring stuff up there, and then joining the military, and then being in the military when it didn't have essentially IT in the fleet at all. And then we started putting fiber optic networking stuff on submarines.
Oh, really? What was that like?
It was quite interesting putting microcomputers on submarines because there's not a lot of space to begin with. So
Yeah.
but that was quite interesting. Did that, and this is back in the time when nowadays they have, computers ubiquitously across the submarine. What's on submarine or a surface ship, people can Skype, email, do whatever. We had the original Twitter, as I called it, because we had these things called familygrams, and you can send 140 character limited messages.
Really?
If you came up and then broadcast, you could get these from your family. So imagine being away, when you're away from the world underwater, you're away from the world underwater, and then every once in a while you get some type of Twitter style shorthand speak to you.
That's awesome. What technology was this?
This
Is it still classified?
well, I wouldn't say it's classified as much as this. At the time, they called them familygrams. So basically,
gotcha.
So if you're out to sea, your family could have a short message, but it was character limited, right?
Yeah.
Per person, they could send it out. And then when you came up, it'd be queued up for you, and they'd download it. And then the radio man would go around to different people, and here's yours, here's yours, here's yours.
That's so cool. I had no idea they did that.
A long time. It was, in the early 90s.
Wow.
But now they have internet. I mean, not when you're underwater, but when you came up, you can literally send emails and things like that now. So.
What was it like serving on that too?
You get lost. I mean, you get lost to the world. I mean, I remember going deployments, and some deployments, 7-8 months or so.
On a submarine underwater?
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, the longest time underwater was like 4 months, but
wow.
but you'd be gone from home port, right?
Mm-hmm.
So out in the Western Pacific at the time where I was at, and then you'd be gone entire NFL seasons. You'd be gone, and you wouldn't hear anything about anything. And then come back, and then the world, talking about the world changing really fast. When you come back in, it's like, wow, this, I don't remember that being there when I left,
Yeah.
It was interesting at the time, because imagine yourself, it's almost like if they were going to go into some deep space deal, it was like they would want to use submariners because they're already used to, isolation and not having to be in contact with anything and just doing your job and be done with it.
Out of curiosity, was that part of training too? Because that is a very unique situation to have that type of isolation from the world for so long.
Well, that's the thing, is they don't train you for that part of it, because you go through school and it's 12 hours a day of school, whatever, new school, whatever, and then you go to prototype, and even there in prototype, you're only there for a shift because they have so many students come in, so you're there for a shift and you're off, and you come back, but you're never like on inside the plant and then gone for day or a month or whatever. You're just there for your shift, and then you're out again. Or when you go on to a submarine or something like that, you get stationed on that. Because I got to my first boat, and they were just about, when I got to the fast boat out of Hawaii, they were just going out on a Westpac. So in other words, they're going to be deployed. So it was okay, you fly, you get to your new command, you report in, and then you go to the boat. Next thing you know, it's like, okay, we're prepared to get underway, and you're going to be gone for 6+ months.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, okay. And then you just kind of do it. You work 18-hour days. I mean, so they shift the clock.
18-hour?
Yeah, you work 18-hour days.
What would you do for that? Oh, that's a long
So
day.
you had 6 hours on watch on the plant, 6 hours off watch, which tend to be when you did your maintenance, things like that.
What kind of maintenance was there?
Oh, there's a whole lot of cleaning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was always cleaning involved. It's one thing or another. But servicing electrical. I was a nuclear electrician, so I was servicing electrical motors. Doing any maintenance, so troubleshooting and fixing stuff during that time. So if stuff's broke and you have to go fix it.
What's that like? Because you can't. I mean, back in the day, you could go to like a Radio Shack, but like when you're there,
they have. Well, I don't know if they still have them, but they used to have what they call storekeepers. That was a rate, and that was your job. So you fill out a park requisition. If you figure out what it was, partner requisition, and he'd go find it. It was stored somewhere on the boat somewhere.
Really? Yeah. Because I know. I'm like you're saying, those things are cramped and every inch is measured. You got. There's not a lot of space.
So
in there.
if you go on a deployment, it really changes things because like if you're going to be on an extended deployment or you're going to be gone to the world for a while, you're going to be in the water. The only thing that limits you is food because we make our own water, we make our own air.
True.
So when you do a storage, if it's going to be a long time out at sea without any replenishment because you hear all hands, on the pier for muster to do a storage load. So everybody in the boat comes out and you're just loading stuff.
Yeah.
Hours at a time, and then you go into berthing, and it's the deck, is stacked with number 10 cans, and then they put plywood on top, and you're essentially walking over the food.
Really?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like I see a lot of parallels to the space travel.
Yeah.
Is it similar to like could you only bring personal possessions that could fit in a Ziploc bag, or what was that like?
Yeah, personal possession. Like there's people that were obviously really good at Tetris. So like one guy in his rack, because your rack is only 6 feet long, and your space tall is only about this tall that you fit in. But he fit in a bike.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
How?
Exactly. He'd fit in a bike, and basically what he would do is he was lying the deck and kind of shimmy his way into his rack because everything was so packed in there. I mean, you get about this much of your bedpan.
So you got 6 inches for your bed.
Yeah.
And then the rest is air for you to.
And then it's air, and then you get a small little locker like this big. At least on the class boat I was on, you had a small thing.
About the size of a loaf of bread, give or take.
Yeah, the little locker. But most everything was done in your bedpan.
But wait, why would he need a bike?
Because if we pulled in somewhere. Right. And typically you pull into a pier that's away from everything. So if you need to go do something, easier to do it on a bike than to walk it, right? To hike it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah. So he brought in a bike. I don't know how many times he used it because I would think unpacking and packing that thing and taking it in and out of the submarine was like, because
Could you do it? You'd have to disassemble it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, so he bought one of those bikes that kind of folded.
Oh yeah.
Right. So. I don't know how many times he used it, but he brought it with him.
And you just slept with it on top of him, basically.
No, he actually lashed it to the top, the bottom part of the rack above him, and then above where he was. That's why. So he would not even smaller space to cram in to get in. That's why he would get on the deck and shimmy in.
Oh, okay.
That's crazy.
And then what kind of stuff did you choose to bring with you? And do you say it all had to kind of fit in that drawer?
Yeah, in your bed packs, you folded it up like this, and then you had a stick to put in. You placed all your stuff and dropped it back down. But yeah, so a lot of people brought snacks,
really,
civilian clothes, things like that. Because if you pull in somewhere, you're not going to wear your uniform everywhere. So,
really, yeah. That makes sense. Did they bring snacks like that weren't standard military issue? Kind of just.
Yeah. So because sometimes you want something quick, and it's going to be at a time maybe the galley's not open, right? So the ramen, stuff that can be used, processed, and can be made pretty fast. That's about it. I mean, at least when I was in, we didn't have. It was early in this, so there was no real iPod. So people brought like
CD players
and things like that, and mounted those in the rack. I mounted mine like above my head in the ringer. But just some creature comes you have. I mean, he literally had an entire. He brought in some at the time VHS stuff too. I'm like, man, this is a lot of room to take. Stuff. So he would bring in. He brought. Well, he'd been in for a while, so he brought everything that he thought he would need. For creature comforts. Because back in the day, we still had CRT TVs, right? And
the tubes,
and movies were on tapes, so it wasn't like. So if there's a movie night or something like that, you were trapped to the whoever had the vote that night
Yeah.
whatever to watch. So if you want to watch something else, you better have brought it with you.
You can just go online and stream whatever you want. You got like 6 VHS tapes you can choose
Yeah, there's
from,
no
maybe?
Netflix underwater.
No.
Yeah.
And what kind of stuff did you bring? What was the most important thing to you?
The CD, probably CD player.
CD
at the time,
player? Yeah.
Listen to a lot of music. Because you could stack, CDs.
Oh yeah, without the cases, yeah, you
Yeah,
can
you can
stack
stack
pretty
them
thick. Yeah.
pretty thick. So it didn't take up a ton of room. Then, I had a friend that even went a little more adventuresome. And this was the time when the mini disc, I guess, came
Oh
out.
yeah, the Sony bit. Yeah.
Mini disc. So
People forget about
we,
those.
we dropped in, we had stopped into Hong Kong, and then he got one of those. And he was like, because he was a technology nerd like I was.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's a lot of money to be spent for a mini disc player. Because
What
those
they-
things weren't cheap when they first came out.
What do they used to go for?
You can get a good Sony Discman for dirt. Not say dirt cheap, but
Yeah.
relatively expensive for enlisted man's pay. But the mini disc was quite a bit, 2 or 3 or 4 times more expensive.
Holy smokes! That's
So-
that's pretty
Because
funny.
it was one of those. It was new,
Oh yeah, of course.
right? So it's new. And I'm like, I always thought about it like, it's cool to have a mini disc player. How much stuff is coming out on mini disc?
Yeah, that's the issue. Who's gonna win? Oh, that's a huge thing with IT. The format wars.
Yeah.
What's gonna be the winning format?
So and another guy bought a laser disc player. Remember those?
Yeah, he brought one of those in there.
He bought one.
Yeah.
To bring it back home.
Those things are huge.
I know, and then and I'm like, then he found out the hard way. If you scratch the laser disc,
Oh yeah, you're screwed.
yeah, screwed.
Yeah, that's the downside. There's some tech I don't miss too much.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's like kind of good idea, but yeah.
Great concept.
Best thing was when we went away from CRTs and got flat panels because those things are much thinner,
A lot easier to install too.
a lot easier to install. I bought my first laptop actually. This was 93, 94 time frame, and we stopped in Hong Kong, and I went to Hong Kong was just this crazy place. Like if you wanted technology,
Oh yeah.
you could go to a mall,
Yeah.
and that's all they had.
That'd be awesome.
And it was crazy.
Did they
And
scan that for bugs and stuff and security concerns? I'm surprised.
That's a good question. At the time, it was probably not that big. Oh, okay, I got to tell you something about that. So, I'm like, they have these laptops here. I'm like, awesome. They have, it was, dating myself, 46 DX4100.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And this is at the time when they didn't have the power bricks that we have now that'll work on 110 and 220.
Oh, yeah.
So it just the end cable was all you needed. The power supply, whatever, 220,
Really?
110, whatever. They didn't have that. So everything pretty much outside the United States is all 220. So I went and bought and sourced parts to build so 110 to 220 to then plug in this power supply to then plug into the laptop in order for it to work.
Yeah.
Rube Goldberg, that.
I like it.
But the software was the big problem.
Really?
It wasn't so much the hardware because it was a compact.
Oh yeah.
So it's not a big deal.
The OG, yeah.
Right. It wasn't a big deal. It was the technology part that was weird was the software. They didn't have all the software, right? That, so like when Warcraft came out and all those things came out,
Yeah.
they didn't have it over there.
Really?
So basically we ripped it off.
Really?
So you could go into a store that only sold software and they had all these discs that they burned
Really?
on the wall.
Yeah.
Right? And you can buy it for like $5. Warcraft,
There you
$5,
go.
whatever. StarCraft, $5. And then I think at the time when Clinton came in, he was like, there was this huge piracy thing because they knew it was a rampant problem. So the way they solved it was, so the second time I went there, you go in this kiosk in this technology center, right? And it would just be a guy.
Yeah.
And he'd be sitting at a table, not in different like this, nothing on the walls. And you would go in there and like, what does he say? Because there's nothing on the wall. It's like,
Yeah.
he just had a binder. He just had a binder.
Yeah.
And then you open the binder up and you'd say, I want this, 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 this. And he would, in the back, burn it. And then you could buy it.
Really?
I mean, you're talking about,
So you just had to change to just-in-time inventory?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It was back then. It was kind of crazy the way the technology was, but you could get pretty much anything you wanted in this technology center. And I went to Korea with my wife.
Oh, cool.
And they have an entire district just for electronic stuff. And you could go in there and the haggling part was the best part was in Hong Kong is you always carried a calculator.
Yeah.
Because you go to one vendor and he'd be selling one laptop for so many, Hong Kong dollars at the time. And basically you typed it in and then you typed in like times 0.80, right?
Yeah.
You just show him the number. He'd have his calculator and put it up.
Really?
And then you would take that number and then you go to another vendor to have the same thing. And you do the same thing to him, right?
Really?
Basically it was...
Was it a language barrier? Like, was it almost like an unspoken thing? Or
Well,
what was
it
that
was
like?
a language barrier because I don't speak Mandarin. I don't speak Chinese. So they didn't even speak English. So that was the way of communicating really was...
Oh, cool.
It was like, okay,
yes or
it
no.
says how much, it's like, and he would type in his calculator, and you would type in your calculator, and then you would go someplace else, and then you would do this until you found the vendor that you wanted to get some. Because a lot of times they would throw, like, that's what it is. I bought the laptop, but I quickly realized, 220, I'm going to need a 110. So, and he kind of had all the components for that too, and I'm like, how much for that transformer? How much for that?
And you
How much for the right?
Yeah.
And in a type in a number, and then the whole thing, and then it was like, okay. I'm like, all right. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Then how did it work once you assembled it all together?
It worked. It worked great.
Cool.
And another guy on the boat kind of did the same thing, and then we ended up playing like Warcraft, land style on board.
Oh, I miss the LAN parties. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it was like the rudimentary LAN parties in the early '90s on a submarine.
Yeah, Age of Empires 2 or Yay or Nay or
Oh yeah, all of those.
Oh, that's the best one.
Warcraft.
Yeah.
Age of Empires. Oh, what else? What else did we play? I think those were probably most of those.
Those were the two big ones I remember.
We did play some Doom, some Wolfenstein.
There you go. First person shooter bar none. Yeah.
First person shooters. Yeah, so it was, and then, we went from there, and then tech exploded, got out, did a bunch of stuff, worked for the government for a while as a DoD contractor. Worked with a lot of exciting technologies. Worked with some really old technology.
What was the first job when you left the military?
So I worked at Micron Technologies. Worked in a memory manufacturer.
So for those who at home who might not know who Micron, how big they are, what were they? What are they?
So at the time, there were about 16 memory manufacturers in the United States at the time. So TI was making memory, Intel was making memory, and those are the big ones in the U.S. And TI had the the throne position because they own the Kilby patent, which was on the transistor, right? Semiconductor transistor. So anybody that was using a semiconductor transistor or MOSFET had to pay TI royalties, right?
That's great for Texas Instruments.
Yeah, great for Texas Instruments, right?
Every industry. Wow. That's an important patent.
Yeah, it was a important patent. Well, when I got there, Micron was the only semiconductor or DRAM manufacturer there was actually two. Zilog was there too, but it was in Boise, Idaho. They had a couple fabs there, but they was only there in Boise. 16 other manufacturers in the U.S. Not a real big player, right?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. Then the Japanese got in, tanked the market really bad.
Really?
World Trade Organization had a thing out with them. Korea got in too because they wanted to corner the market semiconductors. They tanked the market again, and at the time, the U.S. we can't compete against that because we don't get subsidies from the U.S. government like they would from their associated government. So, which is a big no-no in the WTO. So it was like, okay. TI was like, we need to get out. Intel says we need to get out. So, and Micron was like, okay. So they approached Micron and said, we will pay you money and give you our fabs so we can get out of this.
Really?
Because they're hemorrhaging so much.
They're
so
that
much
desperate
cash.
to get rid of the fabric? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Micron at the time negotiated a deal that they would take over TI's memory manufacturing business as long as they no longer pay royalties on lifetime access to the patent portfolio.
Yeah.
And not pay royalties on that Kilby patent.
And Texas Instruments said yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Because they needed to get out because fabs are notoriously very expensive to run.
Oh yeah.
Right. And if you're running with a loss, you're losing money and just in depreciation costs and how much money you're hemorrhaging and making your product. Right.
Oh, yeah. People don't realize how expensive those machines and the clean rooms are just to maintain those types of standards.
Yeah.
It's astronomical.
So I was at the time when that happened, and then once we accumulated that, it was like we had fabs in Italy, fabs here in Texas, fabs, Virginia, Singapore. So we just exploded in capacity capability overnight, and then at the time, our portfolio was SRAM. Not so much in outside the chip SRAM, because at the time there's still stuff that used SRAM as their memory mechanism. So we're making SRAM, DRAM, most commonly used in most personal computers these days, DRAM.
Oh yeah.
We did flash. We had a military division, built stuff for the military, and then it was like overnight or portfolio change, because then we added CMOS imagers, RFID. We just added a ton of new products in there.
Yeah.
So it was like, because we had all this capacity, like, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah. Y'all got to do something with the fabs.
Yeah, so we got to do something with the fab. So we started making pretty much everything. So now, at the time, it was 60 manufacturers, and after the bloodletting was done, Micron's the only one left in the U.S.
That's insane.
So Intel got out, TI got out.
I know a lot of people, when it comes to RAM, I mean, one of the biggest players is like Samsung, which is, of course, headquartered in South Korea.
Right. And so most people don't realize that Micron's commercial arm is called Crucial. So Crucial Technology.
No way.
Yeah. Crucial Technology is the Micron division.
That's awesome. That's literally what I have in the custom PC I made for the podcast editing.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah. So Crucial is basically, so Micron makes the memory, Crucial turns it into a module, whatever form factor it's going to be in, and then sells it to HP,
All
Dell,
major
everyone,
manufacturers, OEM. Yep.
So Micron also, most people don't realize, Micron had bought Lexar. So Lexar was also part of Micron as well. So Crucial SSD. So Micron also makes data center products or SSDs and stuff like that. So back in that, we made a ton of stuff, and then they were like, "We need to branch off into China," and that's when I was like, I saw the writing on the wall, because I was there for the bloodletting and the Japanese entering, the Koreans entering, and if the Chinese entering, it's going to get ugly.
And you can't beat. I mean, I don't know if it's even comprehensible to ever beat China based on price points.
Correct. So that was I saw the writing on the wall, and I'm like, maybe, because we were designing a small subset of products, and the products number exploded, and then it was going to be like, well, we need to jump in the Chinese market. In the Chinese market, it was all like, if you're going to come in here, you got to open up a design center here.
Oh yeah,
and that's going to be a problem.
Yep.
So I was like, eventually, I just saw the writing on the wall, is if you open a design center there, they're gonna have designers come in there, and then what are you gonna do with the designers in the U.S.? Yeah. So it's like, okay, time to leave that. I'm still grateful to Micron, because at the time, what are you gonna do with it? The nuclear power industry in the United States has only been going way downhill,
unfortunately.
Right. So it wasn't like I can get out, and we've only built in the last several decades one net new nuclear power plant.
It's ridiculous.
Right? So that was already a dead industry to try to get into.
Yeah.
Getting out. So I'm like, well, high tech, right? So this is late 90s, early 2000s, right? So tech industry is blowing up. So I'm going to get in there. I did that. And then I was like, okay, well, getting flogged every day didn't sound like fun. So I'm like, okay, I left Micron and went to a small, I'm like, I need to finish school. So went in a small commercial developer, did all their IT there. So networking, server,
very cool,
management, client management, storage management. I mean, everything, because it was a very small commercial development firm. So you had to be a jack of all trades.
Oh yeah, you gotta wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, did that for a while until I'm like, okay, done with my undergrad. And I'm like, do I want to pursue this thing? Because that's when I started getting into security. Because when I was at Micron, it was all about intellectual property protection, and then we were doing R&D design. So it was like, I like this security thing. So that's when I was like, okay, so I'm specialized. So I went from just general IT into getting my master's in information. They call it information assurance, but it's information security, cybersecurity now. But so went to school, finished that. Did this small stint at a startup in Austin, Manning Technologies, Manning Nav Commander Track, and they did GPS asset tracking.
Oh, neat.
So did IT stuff for them. It was really interesting. There's a lot of stuff I didn't realize, but a lot of countries outside the United States require, if you have more than 2 axles in your vehicle, it has to be tracked.
I didn't realize that until I talked to you.
For insurance purposes, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that's what they did. And this was, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, doing that. They had great technology. They had issues with Google, because what are you going to map it on, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. What are you going to map it on? Because people want maps. They want to say, where's this asset? Where's it at? You're not going to say it's at minus 24 degrees latitude. Well, they want it on a map,
Yeah.
visually, right? So he was like, okay, so then you have to map it. And at the time, the leading vendor du jour, if you're going to map stuff, was on Google Maps.
Really?
Yeah.
Even in the 90s? Or what year was that?
That's a good question. It's late mid-90s?
Mid-90s?
No, mid-2000s. I'm sorry, mid-2000s.
2000? Okay, that sounds right. So I know back in my day, the big thing was like
MapQuest.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. So
yeah.
this is post that, the next big thing.
Yeah,
Because you had to dynamically track. MapQuest, you can do, for one thing, like source destination, give me directions, it'll give you a map. But that doesn't quite work if you want
Dynamic in real time.
dynamic in real time, right?
Yeah.
So Google Maps was the thing at the time, and they knew they were the top dog. I mean, there were other mapping technologies or mapping companies.
Allegedly.
Well, it's kind of funny because if you look at Google Maps online, and sometimes if you like do a search or something like that, if you look at one of the lower corners, you can see if it doesn't say Google, it'll say somebody else.
Yeah.
I think one of the other ones like Lead Dog or something like that. There's a couple of different that they subcontracted to, because like Google subcontracts are like Google, the cars that go around. They'll do some third party that will do that for them too. So, but they were the biggest aggregator of the stuff. So if you wanted it worldwide,
You had one option. Yep.
you had really one option. So they got kind of like, you're okay with doing this as a consumer, but if you're doing this as a business,
Cha-ching.
cha-ching, you're gonna want some money. So,
Yep.
yeah. So the developers, they did a pretty good job of finding alternative methods of doing it, and then saying, okay, we're not going to use your API unless we have to.
Yeah.
So they did that for a while, and I got, my wife wanted to do some contracting work, and I still wasn't done with my master's at the time. So we moved around during that, across the United States a ton, because at the time I could do my portion of the master's degree remote.
Oh, cool.
So I did that until I graduated, and then where did I go from there? Oh yeah, that's when they needed a lot of CISSP. The government wanted a lot of CISSP people, and I already had being a nuke engineer, I already had a previous security clearance, and it got me a way to come back to Texas, because I've been everywhere else, and I only told my wife that there's only two places I'd rather live, and that's Idaho and Texas.
There you go.
All right, and she enjoyed being in Texas too, so I was like, okay, we can come back. So took a contract in San Antonio. At the time, they were transitioning to Port San Antonio, but it was at Kelly Air Force Base.
Oh, cool.
So I did that there. It was kind of funny. The contract, DoD contracting is somebody needs to do a case study on how they do that, because the way they do contracting is very weird. Because at one point in time, when the contract was ending for this particular project, and the incumbent was rebidding on the contract, newcomers come in, right? So depending on how hungry the newcomers come in, they're willing to offer a ton of different things to just win the contract.
All right.
So HP decided to come in, and it's like, if you're going to compete with HP, they have no problem. They will outbid you no matter what you do.
Oh, they could have a loss leader too. They could lose money on that.
Right. So they wanted the contract, but they had no expertise in what this project was.
Yeah.
So basically, when it is happening is the shell game happens of, all right, contract is bid. Let's say, company A is the incumbent, company B is coming B, C, D, whatever, et cetera, comes in and wants that contract, and they award the contract. At the time, it was HP won the contract, but they didn't have the expertise in the project. So basically, they take the people that were over here, and hired them, right? So there's one week I came in and I worked for 3 different companies.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, this is right, and it's like this. It just got really strange, and then I did that for a while until there's some, the incumbent company almost always either contests the contract, or it may even escalate to they're going to sue or something like that. And it's like it's a lot of drama in government contracting. So
it's funny because people like the everyday consumer just thinks, oh yeah, it's an easy thing, you just bid and you make lots of money. It's like, no, it's a long process, very technical proposals, all like. It's a lot more complex than people think.
And then the government doesn't move very fast. Everybody seems to think that the government is state of the art.
Yeah.
No, they're not state of the art.
DARPA is, but yeah, as a whole, no.
As a whole, no. Because if you've ever in any government website and you look at that, you can tell. And it's like, just look at the technology that they're using for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's what I hate about, at least in security, is when there's two things I worry about in security companies. Mm-hmm. One is the mergers and acquisitions process. Mm-hmm. The other part is if they do government contracting.
Yeah.
So mergers and acquisitions. So if you're acquired or they're acquiring somebody else, there tends to be a level of stagnation because they're merging those two companies together, right? Or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
The other part of it is when they do in DoD contracting, because DoD contracting is a very formalized process. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times if they sell their products to the DoD has very strict requirements on what you can and cannot do with the product. Mm-hmm. And what the upgrade looks like, what the patching things look like, what the feature sets look like, and everything like that. That's why I always say, if you have a company that ends up doing government contracts, watch what happens to their products.
Really?
And I want you to think about this. How much do you know of like McAfee? Since days from days of old, days of yore to now.
It's gotten pretty bloated throughout the years.
There it's been, to me, I look at it as it is stagnated and has not improved on anything. So their biggest thing at the time for security products was e-policy orchestrator, McAfee EPO. What is that when it was in its prime to what it is now, right? And I think that is my case study of what happens when you sell to the government, right? Is they sold the government EPO, right? And then I'm like, it's a great product. You use it when I was working at Hangar 9. But then they got a government contract, and next thing you know, that product did not change at all.
Really?
Or very little change at all, because the government likes things to work.
Yes.
And they like things not to change. It works. Do not change it. Right?
So in theory, so if I understand this correctly, like they sell a product to the government. If they were to have like they update the product, make it better, and include some free bells and whistles, could enabling those then actually be bad for that contract or the government because maybe they don't want those features?
Correct.
And it's going out of scope now.
Yeah, it's going out of scope, right?
Really?
So it's like, that's why it's like, if you sell to the government, to me, it's almost like, if you're going to sell to the government, I don't begrudge people wanting to, grow their business or get contracts that they want. I don't have a problem with that. The problem is the pace at which technology is changing. If your security products are not changing with it, it introduces two risks. One risk inherent with any product made by a human, and second, by you're not keeping up to date with the modern threat landscape.
Exactly.
Right? So those two things now become a problem, and so that's why I'm like, okay, mergers and acquisitions. They tend to stagnate, and sometimes they come back. Sometimes they divest, or they try to get back to the roots or do something, right?
Yeah.
So a big case in that, mergers and acquisitions that causes the problem, Symantec.
Oh,
right?
Jesus.
See what I mean? So that's what I was worried.
They used to be the best endpoint.
Exactly.
They used to be. It was that or nothing seemingly because it was so good, and enterprise customers loved that stuff.
Loved it, right? What other products did they love that Symantec took over? How about Veritas?
Yeah.
Right. Ghost.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
See what I mean? So there's products that come out there, and then when mergers and acquisitions happens, you really got to go, okay, what's going to happen here?
And then they started to have more and more outages, and the email security went down. Pretty much every MX record of the customers like, oh yeah, gone. No one's using that anymore.
And then, do we really need to talk about their PKI? Okay, so that was I worry about that, and then like my other case issue I had was like McAfee and their policy. They sold it to government, and then next thing you know, okay, products that started off really well, and it's like maybe I'm cherry picking my data points here, but I look at that and I go, pretty much everything I see will in those two different scenarios, you really need to watch for. I'm not saying it's negative. I'm not saying it's positive. Like you really need, when something like that happens, you really need to look at, what your defense in depth strategy looks like, because if one of those things happens and the product goes south, you might have to come out with some other compensating control, right?
Sure.
And maybe another vendor, but that's why I was like, okay. So after working for the DoD, went to another small thing, South Texas Blood and Tissue Center. I don't know why I went there, but it was kind of interesting because of the work they were doing. Did that for a while. They did some mergers and acquisitions and political fallout and stuff like that. But I stayed in healthcare for some reason after that point. And that maybe
What attracted you to healthcare?
I don't. That's the thing is I don't know. Because maybe my wife's in healthcare. Maybe that's the thing. But it's always been intriguing because it's maybe I just like self-flogging myself, because healthcare in the grand scheme of things, oil and gas has money, finance has money for security stuff, and they're regulated, right?
Yeah.
Healthcare is one of the most heavily regulated environments at all, and they have no money.
It's funny. Everyone thinks hospitals are just printing money.
No.
It's a no. Yeah, it's there's a lot. Well, I mean, this thing, the government's involved and the private sector's involved. It's a lot of people say it's the worst of both worlds because it's so convoluted. And a lot of people
convoluted because I'm like, it's kind of. I liked in the story too when I was on the submarine. Everybody has this thing. I don't know where they get it from. Somebody has retconned people into, the submariners have the best food. All I got to say is this.
That's what I heard.
How long does fresh food last?
2 weeks maybe.
A week or two, right?
Yeah.
If you're going out for months, how much fresh food do you think you can take and last on a submarine?
That's true.
See,
like
right?
1 week, maybe 2.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens after that? You're eating out of cans. It's either canned, dehydrated, or frozen.
So is it the Navy or I'm trying to think of like the battleships? Is that where the best food is? I've heard that before.
Maybe the carrier, because they have a lot of flag officers and things like that. But I'm like, on a submarine, it's like maybe for the first week or two, you're having fresh food. And after that point, I mean, all I get is, if anybody watches this has ever been in a submarine, and they'll know, UHT milk.
What's that?
And what it looks like. So ultra high temperature pasteurized milk. It's not white.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
The heck is it? Where's it come from?
It's milk that's been nuked so bad
it loses the color.
Yeah. Well, it changed color. It's kind of a milky yellowish.
Sounds concerning.
Yeah, but it's just, and it's like UHT milk and like stuff out of cans that you don't know. I mean,
they got a 25-year shelf life.
And I'm like this, and they're saying, "Oh, it's the best food." I'm like, maybe somebody had a great mess specialist, and they created, they should be on some Gordon Ramsay show or something like that, because they can make something delicious out of not great ingredients or something like that. But it was never my case. I mean, we've had some good mess specialists that made good bread because it was from scratch, because it's flour, water, salt, and I mean, it's not greatly complicated, but as far as meals are concerned, they're trying to frozen, canned, or the other.
It's all about space optimization.
Yeah,
longevity.
There's only so much good stuff you can make out of that. Let's put it that way. So back to healthcare is healthcare. If they think hospitals make a lot of money, Affordable Care Act, Medicare, Medicaid. How much money do you think those things pay out? They don't. It's the government. They don't pay out.
But I was told those would fix everything. That's what the politicians told me. They don't lie.
Exactly, and and they haggle over everything. And they just know the max we'll pay as this. What? So and then insurance gets involved. And so it's like this.
There's so many.
That's what I'm saying.
And then you got telephone too. It's like all the communication breakdown. And it's like I always tell people. And I don't recommend this to anyone, but like sometimes you don't have health insurance. You know what you do? Go to a couple hospitals, you bid it like a car.
Correct.
Like you call them up.
Ask them for the prices.
Yeah, I called some hospitals like, oh yeah, an MRI here, $750, or there. And I called same GE machine. Oh yeah, that's gonna be $1,575 for the same machine, and they're gonna give you it on I might date myself a little bit. Well, it's a couple years. They give you the data on a compact disc, and it's like, oh yeah, they give you the data. Someone else can interpret it, but like, yeah. I think that, if best bang for your buck, treat it like you're buying a car, bid it out.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. It's just like, it's not the hospitals are making anything, because they got to deal with regulations. They got to deal with
insurance. Oh,
that will kneecap them.
There's some doctors paying hundreds of thousands. Like, people think doctors are rich. And again, many of them are very successful, but they also have a huge revenue, a burden of that insurance alone. And good luck. Everyone likes to sue these days. The United States is extremely litigious. One lawsuit from I was about to say prospective customer, a patient, same thing. I mean, that could ruin your life just because you made a slightly bad error, or maybe they didn't like it. You didn't make an error, but they just weren't happy. So yeah, people think hospitals are all rich. Like, no, I mean, a lot of them are nonprofits. A lot of them are, take donations because, again, it's not the most lucrative thing. That's one of the biggest discrepancies from the perception to the reality. And of course, as we know in IT, that's one of the things where they try to make those pennies, you really pinch them. So that kind of inherently means maybe you don't get the fanciest endpoint solution and best firewalls, and all of a sudden you have to make compromises.
Because obviously most of the money is going towards treatment.
Precisely.
Right? It's going towards the operational model of they got to treat patients.
Those
right?
those $250,000 MRI machines and those X-ray machines, they're pretty pennies.
Yes, I mean, you got to, so, consume a lot of consumables. And, and that's what I'm saying. So a lot of it's going towards the operation of the business. Leaves very little left for IT, much less security. But we're regulated, so
with HIPAA.
Public. I mean, HIPAA is a big one, but guess what? If public company, SOX, you have to. That's what I'm saying. You got to deal with all these regulations. So it's one of the most heavily regulated, but their margins are not very high. It's not like finance or oil and gas, like that. So we have to come up with a lot of creative solutions, and to try to do stuff, and it does, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe I just like being self-flagellate because nobody wants to voluntarily, because you have to volunteer twice essentially to go on submarine, and volunteer to join the service, and volunteer to go on submarine. Yeah. So maybe I'm just like self-inflicting myself with a hard.
It's a big challenge too.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. So I stayed in healthcare, worked for two different, worked for a startup that did healthcare IT and security before it was acquired, and then went to where I'm at currently as the security architect. I mean, it's challenging. It's really challenging. And sometimes you have to remind the people that you work with that finance, you get a breach, right? So credit card number is exposed or whatever. They'll give you a new one.
Oh yeah.
You can't get a new blood type.
Not yet.
Most of your health characteristics are immutable. In other words, you can't give them an alternative thing, whatever. Yeah. Right? So it's like
can't change your DNA.
Yeah.
Can't change
you can't change who you are. Can't change your date of birth. I mean, there's so many immutable things, so you can't really obfuscate that by saying, okay, we're going to give you a new credit card number. We're going to give you
your social security number.
Right? Right. So it's, and I have to remind these people, I'm like, if we do have a breach or something happens, right? The risk catastrophically isn't equivalent to, my credit card, and I can do a fraud and then get a new credit card. It's not the same.
It's like that. And I mean, that's, again, it's terrible when that happens to people, but relatively speaking, that's pretty rudimentary. It's pretty simple to fix a credit card issue. You cancel the card, get a new one, call your credit reporter, file a claim, let them know the process. And if, even worst case scenario, you get a new social security number, go through that process. Again, a pain, but it's a process that can be done. You got bullet points of how to do it. If someone knows your DNA or healthcare, and depending on your a high profile client, what you do for a living, I mean, imagine what's the data or what's the dollar amount of value of like Warren Buffett's healthcare information.
Yeah.
That's
like healthcare information. Like if you want to look at it, like the healthcare information versus a credit card number, like which one is worth more? Credit card number, a couple bucks.
Oh yeah, look at
healthcare information, several $100s.
Look at the dark web. You can buy. Credit cards are pennies on the dollar.
Pennies on the dollar.
They're nothing. Relatively speaking.
I mean, so I don't like to go like my last part of the spiel. If somebody still doesn't get it, that we still need to put this in there, is I show them the video from Ben Gurion University. This is the apocalypse scenario. No, I wouldn't say the apocalypse. It is one of the apocalypse scenarios that I saw that I'm like, this is how bad people get. So they came up with a thesis, or I'm going to say a thesis. They came up with a thought process that said, what happens, what bad can somebody do in healthcare, right? So they kind of tell you about a scenario that they had in Idaho at INEL, Idaho National Engineering Laboratory. They wanted to know what kinetic can they do in cyber, right? So these guys got together and they're like, okay, what can we do to have real life effects or kinetic effects in the real life by cyber? So they hacked in, they changed some stuff having to do with the diesel generator. Basically made the diesel generator destroy itself.
Really?
Yeah, they made it destroy itself. And there's a video on it if you want looking on YouTube. But they basically made it destroy itself, make the oil flow backwards, all sorts of jacked up stuff, right, to make it destroy itself. So these people at Bangor University are like, what can we do cyberly in healthcare space? So pretty enterprising of these students. So basically, with permission, they went into a hospital.
Yeah.
So in line between the MRI machine and where the MRI technician is performing the thing, they put it in line a Raspberry Pi.
There you go.
That was that they can remote access to, right?
Yeah.
So what they did is they made the scan. So they inputted themselves, since they're the man in the middle, the scan that's coming out of the MRI machine to the tech. They are able to introduce or take away tumor artifacts.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like in one scan, they made it so this guy was just riddled with tumors.
Yeah.
Right. Or the scan was riddled with tumors. And then in the next one, with one that's supposed to have a tumor, they took it out.
Oh my God.
Right. So imagine this scenario. So I'm like, imagine this scenario. Somebody goes in because they have hallmarks of, let's say, some type of cancer.
Yeah.
They go in there and it's somebody important. And one person goes, well, they just can make them, a person, take it out so they don't get treated. I'm like, there's even worse. What if they didn't have a tumor? They put a tumor in and they put this person on chemo.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
scary.
These are some nightmare scenarios I can go through. And people just don't go that far. And it's like, but you have to think that far because it has happened before. I mean, after Stuxnet, right? It's like you can have kinetic effects, cyber, in an infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we probably need to do better, right? And sometimes it's hard, especially with doctors that just want to treat people.
Oh yeah.
And they want everything conveniently because
that's
right.
That's kind of the antithesis of a lot of security. Is inherently more often than not, the more secure you are, the less convenience for the end user or the doctor, and they wonder, well, why do I have to have MFA or why do I need this? It's like, well, here's the use case of what happens if you didn't. Here's what happened to this hospital or this business. Like, yes, it is a little bit more inconvenient, but I mean, nowadays you have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
you have to, and I'm like, I don't have a problem with making things more convenient. Let's say, a site provided piece of equipment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they want iPad, laptop, phablet, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, but we need to make sure, because the way security has gone is you can't find anything in the middle anymore. So once it reaches the internet, good luck to trying to sanitize whatever goes through there, right? Because I think we reach a convergent point where more of it's encrypted than not anymore, right? And I wouldn't want my healthcare data going unencrypted on the internet anyways. But but it's one of these things like you can't sanitize the internet of stuff, right? So that includes information that's sensitive or malicious stuff, right?
True.
So the only places you have control is the source and destination, right? So it's like provide them with whatever thing it is, but it's secured at that point and secured at your point. So hopefully everything in between is fine. But more and more times they want to like, no, I'm gonna provide my own equipment. I need my own thing, right?
Yeah.
I want the latest iPhone 15 Max. And I want that connect to sensitive data. It's like,
what sites are you on? Are you on TikTok? Well, no.
yeah, it's like, yeah. So, but they're like, they want their own stuff. They want to be able to change it on the fly because they're, keeping up with the Joneses on the golf course or whatever. And it's like, we can't really do that. And then, sometimes they get really angry, like, why? And it's like, because you're dealing with patient data, but they're my patient data. I don't do anything else on my thing. Then, so it's this long discussion, right? And it's like, and I just tell them, pinky swear, right? Pinky swear.
Yeah.
That doesn't help any of the consumers if stuff gives, because breaches are a daily occurrence now.
Yeah.
And it's not just companies anymore. We're talking about security companies. Palo Alto has a big one now. Citrix has a big one now. Cisco has a big one now. These even security companies are having issues dealing with information security. So it's like, it's not just the end user anymore. It's even the stuff that's on there that we can control have problems now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So blast radiuses, I'm like, oh my, radius has been a thing for authentication for AAA for forever.
Yeah.
And it's like when your foundational pieces are found to be problematic, it's like, what faith do you have, really? Right?
Yeah, it's zero trust, right?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, we got to go zero trust. And that's a huge thing that we're trying to go to now is zero trust. But, zero trust is not an answer because, especially in the healthcare space, because we have so many unique ways of doing stuff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cover all the bases.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody thinks like, CTNA is going to solve. It's like, that's pretty much like I go back to the Hargan of the days. I'm old enough to remember when, with email, it will only work a couple days a week.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, when was this? How?
I think it was a famous, maybe it's not, but I'm pretty sure it was a Microsoft quote that, once you get email, they're working like 3 days a week. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure emails made me work more, not less.
I was going to say, well, it's kind of like one of those hilarious backfires where remember when they first invented the computer, they said, we'll never need paper again because you have a computer. Why do you never need it? And then with printing, now we use more paper than ever and plant more trees than ever.
And then it was another thing. Encryption was another thing that was going to solve everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
So encryption, and I'm like, it's a double-edged sword because now with encryption, what keeps the bad guys from using encryption so you don't see their stuff? It's like, it's a double-edged sword. Right?
And the cost of compute going down every year.
Yeah, it's like
we'll have quantum computers and they'll be able to bust through that.
That's what I just think it's funny. It's like you ever see that color chart of like 12 strong 12 character password, how long it takes before it gets broken, and it's like every year everything gets chopped in half, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like every year it gets chopped in half. Next thing you know, it's gonna be like you need a 26 digit.
Oh yeah, or you need a drop of blood. Sticking in computer.
26 character special password, and we even invented new characters to put in there.
Yeah.
And it'll take you 10 months. I'm like, it's like, okay, so we need to get off of that.
And the end user will still put it on a sticky note on their desk.
Yeah, the person on a sticky note on their desk because I can't remember it, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, password manager will help you with that.
Yeah.
Which one of the password managers hasn't had an issue in the last year or two?
Exactly. That's another thing. Yeah. Yep. Even they're getting attacked too.
So that's what I mean. So it's like security companies right now are having an issue, and I'm like, I see security companies now. That was a big one, and then now the underlying, I'm starting to see something like, so OpenSSH has had issues recently too, right?
Yeah.
So, and now blast radius with radius for AAA. So I'm like, I'm seeing a trend of where possibly the underlying architecture of that's used to secure stuff is now in the dartboard.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The good and bad thing is a lot of end users are becoming aware that even the security solutions themselves, they can be at risk. I think the SolarWinds, that was a big one that opened a lot of CEOs I work with. That got their attention to care more about IT security and really come to the table to those conversations with the IT security teams too.
So I'm a little bit of a black pill on that one. So SolarWinds came out, and that was a huge thing to try to fix. But then, essentially, how many people? If you were to go in normal, not IT, not security people, but just go into the normal directors level or operations and say, do you have the same scrutiny on your other products as you did with SolarWinds?
Probably not.
Exactly.
No.
So it's one of these things like, I saw it for a second.
Yeah.
I was really concerned. It's out of sight now. Back to business.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people say, some people will say, this is the huge thing that will change the mind of executives and the way they think about security. I think it's one of those things they developed a callus.
Because there's so many vulnerabilities.
There's been so many vulnerabilities.
And every day someone gets hacked, it's in the headlines. I mean, desensitized to it.
Desensitized to it. So you get this callus, and it's like, what do we do to fix that? Can we just do that? Right?
Yeah.
And then move on.
Or they say, it's no big deal. We have backups.
Did we patch it? Okay, moving on.
Exactly.
Right? And it's like, the patch thing isn't going to save you all the time, right? So there's most of these stuff that's coming out now. There's zero. Like the one that really scared SolarWinds is bad.
Yeah.
The one that really scared me was RDP. RDP, where Microsoft, it was like, okay, we not only are we coming out with an out of band patch. All that other stuff that's really deprecated into life, and here's your patches for those too, right? Because so many different companies, like healthcare, runs on a lot of deprecated OS. A lot of, that don't have money to keep them with the Joneses. And they leave stuff that runs for 15, 20 years. It's like, that was the one that was like, ooh, yeah, that one's bad. that one was really bad. I had more scary things having to do with RDP than I did with SolarWinds. SolarWinds was bad, but it was like you had to jump over the one hurdle, get inside the environment.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you were inside the environment, if you found SolarWinds, you could migrate out.
Out of curiosity, what's your thoughts on Kaspersky being banned lately? I mean, I honestly never knew anyone who actually used it personally. Like,
me neither. I wish when they did stuff like this, they would at least, if you they'd use a TLP red or something like that, so people that were in the know, they would at least get the information why.
Yeah.
Right? So security practitioners, right? We would know why. Maybe you don't put that in the press, but at least say why, right? Because I don't know if they told Kaspersky this is why not, but just outright ban you. I don't know what they did with that. So it's like, it's kind of those question things. It's like, is this, geography based or, ideological based? Or I don't know why. So it leaves an opening to anybody to put whatever scary bear in there to say why they did it that way.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, that's whenever the government says, okay, we're going to ban, you can't have this. It's like, and did he not bribe you or something? I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I can interject any, anything in there to think why, but it's kind of crazy. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna be like on the operations. I can go, ooh, hates to be those guys that have to remove Kaspersky off because that means they either got to do a capital expenditure or something to replace it with something, or the worst case scenario is like we're going to take it off and not going to put anything on.
Oh yeah, that's the scary part. Yeah,
and so it's like, and I'm sure there's probably some executive that was like, oh, if we have to take it off, can we save that money?
Precisely. Oh yeah, do we really need it?
Yeah, do we really? Can we save that money?
Yeah,
because right now, just the economy that we're in, everybody's like, what do we need to do? Save money.
Yep.
Right. It's like, okay, what can we do without, or what can we consolidate? And to me, maybe that's three options. So mergers and acquisitions, DoD funding, and then vendor consolidation. Maybe those three things. I'm really, I really worry about.
Out of curiosity, what's your philosophy on consolidation in IT in terms of having like one vendor that does a lot or best of breed? It seems like the pendulum swings back and forth every couple of years with IT.
You ever heard this one adage? Nobody was ever fired for buying IBM.
I heard that about Cisco.
Cisco too. So before that, it was IBM.
Really?
Right. It was like nobody ever got fired for buying IBM.
True.
And then that's when the term big iron came around, and it's like, I don't like the I guess the proper term of that, vendor lock-in.
Yep.
Right. So what happens if you put your eggs in one basket with a vendor because you're going to okay, we're going to consolidate because we get a better price.
Yep.
Well, the risk later on is, one, it doesn't perform. B, causes problems.
True.
C, what does the renewal look like?
Oh yeah.
Renewal look like? Because you're locked in, and you're in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm in this ecosystem. They're gonna do a 15% upmarket or something like that.
Yeah.
For all your stuff, and it's like, we never intended to have that.
Yeah.
Right. You got into it cheap. Oh no, you're gonna cost anything. Just you're already licensed for whatever. Here, just run this as well.
But Jimmy, on the quote it says the firewalls are free.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my favorite.
And, it's free, and it's like that's when I should squint. And you're like,
precisely. It's like, oh, it's 1 penny. It's like, really? A firewall for a penny? Yeah. Really?
Yeah, it's like, So it's like, okay, what's coming down the road? And will I be out of here? Because no one went, because, the headhunting comes when they get the renewal, and it's like, it's going to be $4.5 million. I know. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, what? My budget is not even that.
Were there gold bars in those firewalls, sir?
Yeah. It's like, my whole budget for the entire catalog is not even that, and just one product once a day. And it's like, oh, yeah.
It's just a Splunk renewal.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of mergers and acquisitions, go by and Splunk, right? And I'm like, all those people that bought Splunk, ooh, Splunk was not cheap to begin with.
No.
Right? And then now you're going to have the Cisco tax.
Yeah. I don't know how Cisco, I think Cisco paid $28 billion or something like that. I don't know how they make an ROI out of that. I don't think it's conceivably possible.
I mean, just go with the trend.
Yeah.
Just go with the trend. What happened? What occurred during the Dell EMC?
Oh, yeah?
Or VMware acquisition, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I don't like those three things. The merger acquisition is the first one. It's like, you really got to watch what happens in that, especially when large acquisitions happens. You know, when the product really stagnates. So it's like, okay,
Or dies. Unfortunately. Yeah, that's always the greatest fear of, oh, yeah, I've got this great, cool tech. It's awesome customer service. Tech is great. Then gets acquired by one of the big tech companies like, damn, because 99.9% of the time it's going to go to hell really quick or not exist.
Not that I don't like Cisco, but I'm like, what, I want somebody, you know, maybe much more into the weeds than I am of all the security products Cisco has acquired. SourceFire.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, you know, what has happened, you know, I mean, because, you know, they had ASA and then they went to SourceFire and it's like, we came out at FireAmp, you know, all the things they've acquired, what has happened after that? I'm like, that's my point is like, okay, sometimes it comes out. I've yet to find a good one where it's like, okay, you know, large company acquires mid to small size company, comes out with a product that's like world beating, which you would think would happen because you have
more resource allocation.
Well, I mean, both have resource allocations, right?
But you get more though.
Right. So those two. So in most cases, the synergy is the synergy of one versus the synergy of two. If you get two, it's much greater than the sum of individual parts put together. Right. At least what it should be. Right. But it's like, so Cisco, huge monster, buys another Splunk, right? And then it's like, you would think they would come out with a product that's like, oh, gotta have it. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh wait, maybe it'll come out tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, do you wait? It's like, what do you do? And that's why I'm always like hesitant whenever somebody acquires something. I'm like, oh, yeah. So,
but I mean, Splunk is already, to me, anecdotally, like just businesses in DFW. I mean, Splunk is going down for years because again, that huge cost, and the more you use it, the more it costs. Like, it just is so expensive.
That's what I mean, they're already either stagnant or depreciating. But yeah, so I mean, Splunk at one time was like one of my favorite tools to find stuff. Right?
It was great.
It was great.
But you need a lot. You need individual. I mean, that's a tool where you need a team dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And again, the cost. They saturated.
Just Splunk.
Yeah.
If you had just Splunk and then you added ES.
Oh yeah. And then now you have all these competitors that are a lot cheaper, a lot more aggressive, and a lot of people say just as, or if not better, in terms of quality of a product. So I mean, now the compelling reason to buy Splunk is less and less. So I'm not sure. Maybe they'll spread it, put the magical tech into all the stuff Cisco does. But I'm pretty skeptical to think, will they actually get an ROI from that $28 billion? Maybe they will. I mean, who knows? But
I mean, it's almost. I don't know. Get your opinion on this. So, how much hurt happened to Splunk when something like Suricata came out?
Probably not too much.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
Do you think there's another tool that was a David to Splunk's Goliath?
Nowadays?
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, I think CrowdStrike had a really good acquisition with Humio. That was a really good one. They've been growing like a weed. And now that it's being more integrated into their technology, that was a good complementary purchase. I think that's a big one. I know Arctic Wolf's slowly but surely growing. And
so that's in the consumers. Do you think there's any open source or something
open source?
Like that? Yeah, that kind of like because when Splunk was the log aggregated Azure, and you could do a lot of stuff with it. It wasn't like log aggregation was new.
Yeah.
Right. But at some point, it was the value add of ease of use or user interface capabilities and things like that. I looked at it as other the Davids come out of the open source community and say, I think we can do that. Maybe it's not 100% parity, right?
Yeah.
But offered something in the open source community to the big giant that said, okay, we maybe we offer 75%
Yeah.
or 80% what they can do is that more often than not, at least in most other industries, the big fish, Goliath just swallows David. Right?
Yeah.
But it seems like now if you're an open source and you come up with something that's, at least somewhat 50% comparable to an expensive, relatively expensive product, that those guys now, I think, have a little more, because since we're in this weird economic situation, it almost becomes easy. They have more breathing room.
Yeah.
Right.
Because companies are doing less acquisitions.
Less acquisitions.
Yeah,
And a little more breathing room to say, because we've always had like free endpoint AV, right?
Yeah.
So now some of the free AVs are coming with more like enterprise feature sets, right? I mean, I guess the note, the big one when that one was like Defender, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Microsoft included Defender, and I mean they're starting to charge for other services outside of Defender,
of course,
integrate with that, but Defender's still free. But that's what I'm saying is more stuff that's at least in the security space I see coming out is they're trying to say we see what the enterprise gives you or the big dogs give you. What can we do in the open source space that's maybe it doesn't compete with, but it's comparable to, and then we can breathe a little bit more. Maybe I'm scared about the fact that since we're in this economic situation, the VC firms are not handing out as much money.
Oh yeah,
right.
They've cut that, but yeah, they cut it back a lot.
So it's like that was always what kind of drove new things, right?
Oh yeah.
So people, because most corporate companies they do have an R&D budget, but security wise, it's really hard to move because security gets a bad rap because anything that happens in the environment, who's the first person they blame for something happening?
True.
Security,
Yeah.
right? So they kind of have this handicap of we can't really be super dynamic in what we offer, where the open source community can, right?
True.
You're only as limited by your imagination and caffeine for developers. Essentially, in the open source market, right? Now it's, and then you would get Series A, Series A, Series B, amount of funding to keep it going, and then hopefully somebody will acquire you.
Yeah.
At some point. That's why I'm just hoping that we still keep that open source to keep the enterprise level guys honest, right? To keep them at least like we either got to acquire or we got to step up our game, right? Because I don't want it to stagnate. Because this is one of these things like 24/7. There's probably some kid in some basement that's gets to test his. I'm testing. Because they have access to the same open source libraries that most of these people are pulling from, right?
Yeah.
To try to exploit.
Oh, yeah.
And in order to prevent that, these other companies are trying to say like, okay, not only do we got to find where these vulnerabilities are, and we got to detect, and we got to be able to remediate and do all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I just hope that cycle just continues to ramp up, because if the security products stagnate, as nation states are becoming better at getting into stuff, and that disseminates now, especially after like what was that Locker 7 or whatever, all those 0 days that came out, right, got released, and so it's like that gave a huge boost to the bad guys to be able to do stuff because they're like, oh, look, we have what the NSACI have or whatever. So it's like, okay, so it's like that means the security companies have to elevate themselves in order to prevent that, because it's a war now between nation state developers developing exploits versus people trying to protect the kingdom, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, in this environment, it's like it's really hard to do that because the open source was kind of like pushing these guys over here because they're perfectly fine with making money, right? So it's like there's no real impetus for them to improve their stuff, right? Other than competition.
True.
So it's like, and their competition is the open source community saying, "Oh, I can do that what your product does, but mine's free." And I have guys that are playing with it, and they're telling me all the time of, "This is slow. I need to fix this. And to make it better."
I think that's definitely going to be true for cybersecurity and for that particular part of IT. But I mean, we don't really see, not to be, not to insult any engineers at like a server company, but like we really don't see a lot of relative innovation and competition in servers. I mean, how many manufacturers are there really? Got HPE, Dell, Supermicro. I can't really think
Who builds the stuff for Lenovo?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So, I mean,
so that's four.
that's I mean, but most of the stuff, but obviously most of the stuff is either OEM'd, manufactured, white box, or whatever, in, either in China,
Foxconn,
or South Korea, or Japan, Taiwan, right?
So it's like
all coming from
there's not a lot of startups and servers. A little bit in storage. We saw a couple backup companies. Rubrik IPO'd this year, but really, where's the big research, development, innovation? I mean, it will always, I think, be by its nature cybersecurity because it's just the cat and mouse game going back and forth.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's I was hoping for more baked in security. So as it was manufactured, because remember, I guess the last real integration of security into at the beginning of the pipeline, outside of actually in the chips themselves, was TPM, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like after that, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so, there's stories of like foreign intelligence assets that were basically intercepting shipments and sticking extra stuff in right before they reached the final destination where it was going to be installed.
Well, even corporate espionage too. I won't say which manufacturer, but there's a server manufacturer shipping a bunch of stuff over to Apple, and Apple's team, before they added it to the network, they started to rip these servers apart and look at it, and they put in the
hey, what's the size of this PCB?
Yeah, precisely, no, and they found spyware on it.
Yeah, I guess so.
So that, I mean, I'm told that was one of the reasons why like HPE, they burned it directly in the firmware. Their marketing team calls it like the silicon of trust or something cliche like that. Like, so there's been some improvements throughout the years, but I mean, why was that done? Security. That was the number one driver for why they did that.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's just like you have to protect each end of the thing. That includes each end of the manufacturing process, right? Because we see a lot of the supply chain attacks, whether it's, hey, GitHub's got libraries that are payloaded. Apple too, right? So Apple, a lot of the library. So what was it? CocoaPods.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, so it's like that's what I'm telling you. You have to secure both ends of your thing. That's just not just from the device itself, but also the code, the hardware. And then all that stuff in between. It's like it has to be scrutinized from end to end, and I just don't see a lot of people going. Something has to blow up really bad, right, before somebody takes action. It's like an ounce of prevention versus a pound of pain, right?
True.
So it's like just look at it from the beginning a little bit, and then make a thing. Sure, there's been some cases of where security baked in. What was the chip that they were going to, this is dating me. Back in the 90s, the government wanted to put in a chip, right, on any manufactured process, so they could keep track of stuff. And it's like,
then they had that one guy on national TV, like, show him, like, oh, yeah, I can defeat it like this.
Yeah.
I remember that article or that documentary.
So it's like, you kind of don't want to go too far.
Yeah.
But you do want to have something in there for your QC process to say, okay, this is done, and then say, okay, inter path communication, stuff like that is secured, stuff like that. I mean, people will always find a way, because I remember, I think it was an Army guy, did the whole duster spray, turned it upside down. So basically, how to get cryptographic keys out of memory.
Really?
Yeah. So he took the duster stuff. So basically froze the memory.
Yeah.
In order to pull it out of the machine, so it had enough charge in there, because dynamic is basically it's stored charge. So the colder you can get it, the charge stays there longer.
Yeah.
To be able to freeze it, pull it out, put it, and then dump the memory and get the keys out of it.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. There's people that will find ways to do stuff. That's why it's like you got to protect stuff a little bit better. Like the craziest flaw that I ever saw that was just really weird for a very specific task. I don't know if you remember Heartbleed.
No, which one was that?
So basically, you sent a packet, and what would happen is the way the mechanism happened is, in order when this packet was sent back out, they would basically dump part of the memory into that packet, and then you would get the packet and you could read the payload. Basically, it was supposed to be junk data.
Yeah.
Right. But so when Heartbleed first came out, maybe Mac, maybe it's been so long McAfee won't sue me.
Right.
So EPO at the time, this is a lot of stuff was vulnerable to Heartbleed. So I sent the packet to EPO server.
Yeah.
And it spit out. So when the packet came back, and it was 100. I did it several times because it was supposed to be random.
Yeah.
Data out of memory was being in there. I would always get the full disk encryption key back in the payload, and I'm like, this is not good. And the thing was, it was supposed to be random data, but it seemed like every time, Heartbleed EPO server, I always got back the encryption key, and I'm like, that's what I'm saying. When there's a will, there's a way, and because the systems are so complex nowadays. Oh yeah, you can't take into account every outcome of whatever happens, right? So that's why I was like, ooh, this is okay. McAfee, when you come down with an Heartbleed patch,
right? And
it was effective because I applied the patch and I tried to Heartbleed it and didn't get that, and I was like, oh my god. But when you have a problem, as soon as when the announced vulnerability comes, the 0 day comes out, it's about Heartbleed, and within a day, like Nmap, you would put in the Heartbleed switch and you could, people are just reading, like, what is spewing out of supposedly this buffer? Yeah. Right? I haven't heard of anybody else come out with some other juicy tidbit of information, but that was my experience with it. And I'm like, 0 days are ugly. Oh, yeah. They're really ugly. And they can be, depending on what products the 0 days are on. But the other thing that worries me is when developers start using, open source libraries. And it's like, what compensating control do you have for that?
Precisely.
Right? And it's like, what do you do? Because developers are going to develop, and they're not going to reinvent code. Oh yeah. Right? They're not going to reinvent code. They're going to find some library that has whatever they want, and they're going to want to use it because they have deadlines. And right? So it's like, what do you do when the well's poisoned? Right? Yeah. It can be poisoned. True. And most likely is. It's like,
don't know it yet.
Okay, when they pile the code, it's like, so then you have, code development, testing that you can do, but realistically, that only finds, structural errors in your code, right? So it's like, it doesn't find where somebody's payloaded something in there that's going to send, some piece of information out to somewhere else. It's not going to. Right. Yeah. It's not going to find that kind of stuff. So it's like, I'm like, what do you do? And then that's why I keep reading about like CocoaPods and stuff like that. I'm like, basically the wells are poisoned in these libraries. And it's like, and these developers are using these libraries to develop code, and they're just trying to do their job. Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh Lord, how do we even find that? Right. Yeah. How do we?
It's not easy.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, and they're like, where do you get your stuff from? Oh, we got a GitHub and, and I'm like,
about that.
And they're not even using, it's already bad enough that sometimes they're not using up to date libraries, right? Yeah. So they're not recompiling code with up to date libraries. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
And what do you like to do outside of IT?
I used to do a lot of hobbies outside IT until things got really expensive. So, like you, I think I used to do HPD days and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. What were you driving?
And I'm trying to think of all. I think they've all been Camaros.
Really?
They've all been Camaros.
And I was going to say, for the folks at home, HPDE, that's high performance
driving.
Yeah, those are fun and addicting.
Yeah, I like driving fast and then learning how to learning the limits of yourself right? And another vehicle you're driving it on, because it's.
What gen Camaro was it?
So I've had 4th gen, 6th gen Camaro.
V6s, V8s,
V8,
stick shift. There you go.
Yeah. So it was, so the last one I had was the 6th gen Camaro. So it's 50th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
The ZL1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What color you get?
Blue.
Nice.
Got some forged wheels for it. Got some
I saw
cup
one.
tires.
I saw one of those at the track a couple months ago. They are so insane.
Kick in the pants. Oh, another car driver, CTSV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3rd gen CTSV. Yep.
Cadillac's come a long way. One of my buddies used to have the CT4V Blackwing.
Yeah.
Twin turbo V6
Also
with a
new one,
stick
yeah.
shift. People don't realize how awesome Cadillac does things sometimes.
So yeah, I got the CTSV, the one that set the they set the record on the Nürburgring. That was a big thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm
Good
like,
old-
oh, it's great car.
Yeah.
Comfortable to drive. I used to drive that one because I used to live in Austin.
Yeah.
And since Kelly, I would have to drive from Cedar Park, so the north part of Austin,
Yeah.
to San Antonio. And everybody thinks like, oh, hour plus commutes suck. And I'm like, but if you're in a CTSV, does it really suck?
No.
Exactly. So it's like, put on some tune.
Anything with a stick shift, I'll smile ear to ear driving that thing. It's a fun experience. It's getting rarer and rarer. I still can't believe they're killing the Camaro. They're going to bring it back apparently, allegedly, as a 4-door EV. So damn, or SUV.
Yeah, you kind of saw the running on the wall when you saw the SUV, the Blazer, with the front end that looked like a Camaro, right? So I kind of saw the running. The problem is I'm going to say it's a problem. The direction they went. So the 5th gen Camaro was a quintessential muscle car, right? It was what everybody thought a muscle car would be.
Yeah.
6th gen, they wanted more performance out of it.
Yeah.
And so in order to put more performance out of it, they had to structure it more like a sports car, sports coupe, right?
Yeah.
So a little more squat, stagger. They had to try to get some weight out of the vehicle, give it a really, really good motor. But it was a lot harder to get in and out of than the 5th gen was.
Yeah.
So, and most of the cars that were built, at least around the Camaro, were not the 8-cylinder version, right? So most of them were going to be the RS versions and stuff like that. But
what year was it? Gen 6 again? I forget.
Gen 6 was like 2016.
Yeah.
Ish. Yeah, I think it's 2016.
I remember, I was going to say, one of the best product placements in history was General Motors basically sponsoring the Transformers movies.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of my friends got that Camaro because of the Bumblebee.
Yeah. But that's what most of them that were sold were all in the RS versions.
Yeah.
And then the next one, the SS. And then the best track car they made was the 5th gen Z28. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So that thing was really light, just up ramped suspension.
Amazing engineering.
They put one speaker in it because they had to, right?
For legal purposes,
Yeah. So it was, but that was, a good track monster.
They did AC delete too, right?
Yeah, they did receive delete. I mean, there was a lot of good things about it. And then the 6th gen came out, and I took the receipts out. I took it out myself, but the Z01, that motor was a monster. 650 horse, 650 torque. It was an amazing motor. Now the big thing now is so the Camaro's gonna go away.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that the Mustang is still around.
I kind of love that. I've loved the Camaro, the styling, the handling. I've never owned one, but I've had the opportunity, thankfully, to drive a lot of them. I love the Camaro, but gotta give to Jim Farley. He's the current CEO of Ford, and I almost had a single tear come down my eye in joy when I hear him say, I don't care what GM is doing. I don't care what Chrysler Stellantis is doing. We will always make an affordable V8 sports car.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
With a stick shift, like it should all be by default.
That's what I mean. If somebody has a principle, they can drive that, right?
Yeah, and he's a driver too. Like,
that's what I'm saying. If he wasn't there, I'm pretty sure the Mustang would go away.
I agree.
Camaro, right? So,
and because they've all had rough years. Although the Mustang's the only one. There were some dark ages, of course. That's never been stopped because Camaro was canceled a couple times.
Yeah.
Same with the Charger, the Challenger.
Yeah, that's probably going away. I don't think there's a new one going to be made, a Challenger and Charger.
There will. It's just sad. It's going to be a straight 6 and an EV.
Yeah, so I mean, it's in other words, they're not going to make the Hellcat.
It's not
version.
heavy.
Yeah.
No. Unfortunately.
So it's like,
And those exhaust notes were the Challenger exhaust note. That thing sounded like a symphony of muscle car.
Yeah.
And you can get the pistol grip stick shift.
That's what I mean. It's
option.
like these are slices of Americana that are going away. It's like, so the only, I mean, GM, they're sticking to their guns with
EV.
Corvette, right?
I mean, I'm going to be that guy. It's dead to me because it's only 2 pedals and it's a rear engine and controversial enough.
Well, yeah,
But yeah,
but most of the supercar, I mean, they're trying to get into the supercar territory, right?
They're trying,
right?
yeah.
So
They
because it's the way it's styled and things like that, and, and you know, things with flat plane cranks and stuff. Just you put that into the hands of somebody that doesn't understand, you know, high revving. I just see a recipe for disaster, and they would have a lot of people that are like, my car's broke. So I think I mean the shift is faster. It understands terrain. I mean, if the shift was like garbage, like a 15-year-old transmission, right? Train shift, right?
Yeah.
An automatic transmission train shift. Now these things are so dang fast.
Oh,
That's right. Ferrari does it. Lamborghini does it. They all do it, right? But
although, did you hear about Pagani? The custom order. There's one guy that get the stick shift Pagani.
yeah. I mean, if you have what they say, FE money.
Oh yeah, no,
you
precisely.
can get whatever you want.
I mean, I've talked to people who order Pagani. I mean, you're part of the process. They measure you up. They customize it however you want, which, given the price point, it makes sense as well. But yeah, I mean, most of the traditional companies, Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini, even the Audi was the R8. I mean, a lot of them, well, they had to stick for a while, but they all acquiesced to automatic because again, it is faster. But
I mean, supposedly, didn't McLaren move from New York to Dallas, the Dallas area for
Irving?
Irving?
For the U.S. headquarters? Yeah. They're all automatic as well.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's the thing.
There's only a couple left. I know I'm in the minority of wanting, having 3 pedals.
But I wonder if it's going to be one of these things like that's going to be a vestigial tale. That there will always be somebody that will make some type of stick car.
I mean,
right?
It might be like horses. Back in the day, everyone had horses. Now, usually people with a lot of capital have horses.
That's what Jay Leno says about cars, right?
Yeah.
That's what he says about cars. It's going to be just like horses from yesteryear. Only you have something else.
I mean, a lot of the average people I mean, I would never want it, but a lot of people are okay with the robo taxis where there's no pedals at all and you just get in and you can work.
And you can doom scroll the entire time,
you
right?
Go on the TikTok, the Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. But like, to me, it's an experience getting in.
It is. That's right. My wife didn't understand it, but we went to Germany, and for my birthday, she got me to go on the ring taxi.
Oh, really?
The Nürburgring, yeah. And
awesome.
And it was just me. So usually they book it by the car, but she wanted it special, so it was just me, the driver, and her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't enjoy it so much. I'm like, this is awesome.
I mean, that is the proving ground.
Yeah. And she got I don't know. She swore she didn't do her shift. I'm pretty sure she's lying to me, but because she got the guy that I always ask, because the thing to ask of the Nürburgring drivers is how many times have you been around on the Nürburgring, right? So the queen of the ring, everybody knows, Sabine Schmidt, right?
Yeah.
20,000+ laps. Probably knows it better if she was on Ambien and sleeping than most people, right? So I asked the guy, so you get in the car? He goes, so I asked him, like, how many times have you been around the ring? And he goes, over 20,000 laps.
Oh my God.
I'm like,
dream job there. Oh my God.
I'm like, what the hell? Right. And it's just me. And the thing about the Nürburgring, that's just insane because it's a public road.
Yeah.
So it only gets rented out.
When a manufacturer wants to shut it down, like for records.
Yeah. They shut it down. So car testing, right? So if Audi goes out there, or VW, or say, BMW, they go out there, and so Corvette goes out there, they do. But the thing is 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Public road, right?
Yep.
So we get there, and I think Audi was testing that day, and then 5 o'clock. But the thing about it is everybody knows everybody has a watch. Everybody knows when 5 o'clock rolls around. So everybody starts getting in the cars. And next thing you know, you have like hundreds of people coming out, track officials coming out, and they're basically preventing people from
going too quick. Yeah.
Trying to get in the queue.
Oh yeah.
To prevent, right? So you see all these German guys. The driver that my wife hired goes, get in the car. Get in the car. I'm like, oh, okay. So we go and get in the car. He starts driving to the run. Audi comes by. They almost always do their hot lap thing. So Audi comes by. So we know. Then after that, the track official goes out to clear the track. He uses a lot.
Yeah.
Track. So you get in the car. He starts driving up. None of the track officials will look at him.
Really?
They all look at everybody else. You go back over there. You go back over there. He just drives. Gets in the line. First car in the line.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be a clear track.
What car was it?
It's an M3.
There you go.
So I'm like this is going to be very interesting. So basically, you go to the slide and the RFID badge reader, and you click it, and off you go. Right? So we get up there, and here comes the force official car, goes by, and then the official points it in, click, boom, we're gone. We just go.
Gosh.
Open track. So behind us was another guy, but he's in a race prepped. So he's another ring driver. Mm-hmm. Race prepped Jaguar.
Nice.
Right? So me, I'm not a very small guy. Right? The driver and my wife, all like 145 pounds, soaking wet, her, in the back seat, fended off this guy in the Jaguar, race prepped Jaguar, the entire time.
Really?
He's just not even a grin on the guy. He's narrating the entire time, not even stressing. And he was like, and now we go to the foxhole. You get a lot of compression here. And you just like get crushed in your seat.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to the side. Like, not bringing a sweat, just hitting this thing hard. I'm like, this is amazing. My wife is like, I'm going to black out. Right? And I'm like, this is amazing. And it wasn't until the last part where you do the cool down. So then in Nürburgring, there's a long straightaway before you do the final turn in. And that's when he slows down. That's when the Jaguar comes by.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Right? But he fended off this thing the entire time. I'm like, man, this is... So he's technically not supposed to be racing. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah. He was making sure we were not getting past.
That's awesome.
So I highly recommend if anybody ever has a chance to do it. It's a one-lifetime event.
Absolutely. That's a dream.
That was also the one time I've been scared my entire life. And it wasn't from the track. So outside the track is this place called Adenau. Mm-hmm. So we rode the bus there at Adenau before we got another transfer to the track. Sitting at the bus station. And I didn't know if we were going to be able to get on the track. Yeah. Because it was cloudy. And it was kind of stormy weather. Me and my wife were waiting, and then next thing you know, it got really bright to the point where unconsciously your eyes had to shut really tight.
Really?
Boom! This lightning struck probably feet from us.
Oh my God! Really?
So loud. I mean, enough compression that it sucked the air out of your lungs. I mean, just.
Oh my God!
I'm like, what? There's a German lady, like she was freaking out too, and I'm like, holy cow! I've never been that close to a lightning strike and felt that. It was just like really bright, and then boom!
Oh my God!
I'm like, I don't know if this is ominous or good,
right?
You know, this is a good luck charm. I don't know what it was, but it was like, okay, we're backing back away from the bus station.
Right.
Right. It was just crazy. But once we got the track, the weather cleared up and it was fine. But I was just like, whoa. Right. I never felt any. It was like this was just like crazy. I mean, I've seen lightning strikes like at a distance. Mm-hmm. I've actually seen it where it's hit the ground and caused a fire. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. But never been so close that it was like, okay. People, I have much respect for people that have actually been near like a tree and have been struck or been hit or something like that. I'm like, that was bananas. I'm like, holy cow, it's crazy.
Can't imagine that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the concussion, just how bright it got. Because that's the first thing I realized. I'm like, oh my, why am I split? Because it got really bright, really fast, and it like, and then just the crash, and then the concussion from it. I was like, wow. It's crazy. Never experienced anything like that. I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
But I'm like, okay. And then we're about to go on a track and go really fast. So 2 adrenaline dumps in one day. All right.
I like that.
I'm like, I'm good.
What's your favorite car? If you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you get?
Well, I'm really excited for the new Corvette ZR1 coming out this summer.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder what, because it's been a lot of
power.
talk. Yeah, it's got a lot of talk about head integrated turbos.
Oh, yeah.
Just a lot of crazy. I mean, the Z06 Corvette's no slouch either.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have like, oh, I gotta have this. I just have a general respect for what cars can do, right? Tesla makes a great car.
Right.
I'm like, if they solve the energy density battery issue,
Oh, yeah.
it's really hard to beat what that car can do. But ice cars still have a place. I mean, I love the aesthetics of them, the things they can do, the color, everything. What tech they put in it, the feeling you get when you actually can get on the track and actually
Punch it.
Yeah. See what the limits of the car can.
Nothing beats downshifting into a corner.
Yeah.
That's so much fun.
And then accelerating out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you can just feel, getting to a point where you can feel where the balance is and you downshift and you start accelerating. You can, when you can feel like, I'm sure it's how like fighter pilots feel about their aircraft, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you start, and then the torque gets in, and then, a precise point where, if you go any more, your back end will step out, and then you have to. I mean, just that whole aspect of it, of understanding the vehicle dynamics, and then.
Well, that's another exciting thing about ICE engines and traditional vehicles. They all have very different feelings. Where computerized EVs, a lot of them feel very similar. It'll probably be the software will make the difference.
Yes, the software will make a difference.
That's going to be the weird thing.
So. That was the like purist in the ICE industry, right? So when they went from direct steering input, mechanical, and then they went to steer-by-wire, right?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's going to be horrible. You don't have the vehicle, you don't understand the car, blah blah blah."
Just like the acceleration pedal too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. But now you look at it, and people can tune it, right? How heavy the steer is. That was one thing about the Carrot that I had. It was like you put it in nanny mode, right? So there's normal cruising driving. It's really. I mean, literally, you can probably blow on the steering wheel, it'll turn, right? And then till once you got into sport mode, and it was like, wow, you have really good steering input. You can actually feel the car fairly well, and it's like, and it's all synthetic.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
But it's like, but I'm like, look at fighter jets.
Oh, yeah?
None of them use hydraulics anymore. They're all electronic.
I think only the OG Warthog A10.
Yeah,
They're still.
But
that's still out there.
Yeah, but that's
legacy
that's
tech.
going away. Yeah, that's going away. So all the modern fighter jets, whatever, it's I was watching a podcast about a guy who was like the difference because he flew both the F-22 and F-15, and he was like, the difference between doing a high G turn in an F-15 and an F-22, like. That's the thing about it. Most of the newer fighter jets F-22, there's only like a quarter of a degree or inch input. It's not yanking.
Really?
Yeah. Very small movements, and it's like he has a better sense of the aircraft. It's not any different like a 787 or an Airbus A380 or something like that. It's all synthetic, but they've been able to do the feedback in it so much better. That the pilot can feel what it's doing easier, and you don't over G. He's like, in F-15, over G'd it all the time.
Really?
He's like, yeah. As soon as the rate limiter beeper came on, it was like, oh, I'm overstressed the airframe. Got to go and inspect it. He's like, can't do it.
Wow.
He's like, can't do it. He's like, as soon as you know exactly where it's going to be, and I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when newer stuff comes out, people will hate it. It takes away. The purists will say it takes away from the experience, and it's like,
in some ways, yes, but in other ways, there's upsides to it.
Yeah,
too.
there's upsides to it, right? You don't.
I mean, people said the same thing about Glock. No one's going to want that plastic junk. Now they're the largest, probably you could argue the most successful manufacturer for that.
Out of all my handguns that I have, only one is a metal frame.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not going to put money on it, but I'm going to guess there's a high propensity that it says 1911.
2011, yeah.
Oh, there you go. What kind of 2011 you got?
Staccato P. Yeah.
Nice. I've been drooling over the Staccato XC for years, and it's amazing. Look,
So
it feels,
that was my choice. It was either P. So there's a P Limited and the XC, and the P Limited, which has like the XC style trigger, so light, 2.5 pounds, doesn't have the comp, right? So I'm like, so I had the P for a while, shot probably 15,000 rounds for it.
15,000?
Yeah, I shoot about 15,000 a year. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I go to the range every week.
That's a lot of trigger time.
Yeah, that's a lot of trigger time.
Oh.
So shot it, and then I'm like, I'm going to do that Dawson Ice comp. So I sent it off to Dawson. They put the comp on it because I'm like, okay, what is this going to do for it? The recoil is with the comp is more. This one is kind of hard to describe. It's more consistent, right? And then I shoot an XC, and I'm like, really good. Can't maybe have to shoot it more to see the difference.
Yeah.
But P with a comp XC, I should shoot both equally well. They feel a little bit different in each thing, but I'm like, is it enough to spend enough?
Yeah, because for folks who
a
don't
kidney.
know, for folks who don't realize, the XC is naked about 4,200, which would with guns naked means there's no optics or upgrades. Yeah. And I mean, I've never seen an XC without a red dot on it, and that's going to run you $300 to $1,000 depending on the manufacturer model. And it gets pricey pretty quick.
4,500, $5,000. Is not outside. The mags alone will.
Oh yeah.
Will make you raise your eyebrows.
I bought some from a friend for a gift. I was like, oh yeah, it's a pretty penny.
Yeah, it's about $70 a piece. It's like, ooh, yeah. So, but yeah, that's the only metal frame gun I had. The rest of them are polymer. So Glock, Sig, Walther. Oh, FNX, is that one a metal frame?
Which one? Oh yeah, it is.
It is? Oh, okay, so I have two then. So I have the FNX as well.
FNX, which one?
FNX Tactical 45.
Nice. Yeah. Tactical with a tactical, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. You got a can on that or no?
I do.
Which one do you go with?
Rugged.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't tried them out yet.
I thought you had a rugged suppressor for your FNX.
Osprey.
Yeah. Osprey 9. Or Osprey 45.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Like, it works, but again, you got to reposition it every couple of times because again, it's not a circular suppressor like most. It's more. It's a square, basically.
Small,
or a
taller at bottom than stuff, yeah.
Yeah, which again has its advantages, but yeah, every once in a while I gotta realign everything. But yeah, it's almost miserable to shoot that gun without the can on it. Like because again, it's a 45, so it's
big
already
heavy bullet, going really slow.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of inertia. Yeah,
it's really nice to shoot on without earmuffs too if you ever get the opportunity. You ever to Dallas Pistol Club?
Yes.
Yeah, I went there a couple months ago and I got to shoot it. Because there's no one there. So just got to take off the earmuffs and shoot it, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Can't beat shooting steel too.
Yeah. You get instant feedback when you get it.
Oh yeah. I miss that about Iowa. I had a nice local range. It's like $10, shoot all you want. And now you got to be a part of like that one club because there's not a lot of opportunity to shoot steel relative to within DFW.
Correct.
And like, it's smile ear to ear when I do that. It's so much fun. So much better than paper.
I need because I live on the west side of the DFW area. I need to find a place that has steel.
Yeah,
because that one's. I want to go to DPC because I have the competitions every week.
Oh, really?
So I want to get into that. I have a friend there at the range. I was like, "Hey, you need to do this." I'm like,
"What's DPC for the folks at home?"
Dallas Pistol Club.
Oh yeah.
So every week they have a competition, pretty much. So it's like sometimes it's steel challenge. So it's a steel challenge. So I'm like, gotta do it, but it's really hot.
Yeah, well, that's another challenge too. Yeah,
but it's really hot.
Oh yeah.
Now, and if there's range, it would be nice to do with their PCC as well. Carbine and do that on steel. That'd be nice.
Oh, Daniel, it's not. I don't think it's to sale to the public yet. But I remember the NRA show. They had the Daniel Defense display, and they had the new Daniel Defense PCC. So it's not mass produced. It's not made yet, but the concept felt really cool. Not just dry filing it and holding it, but it seems pretty neat. Because again, there's more and more demand for the pistol caliber carbine, especially. I mean, 9mm is a lot more affordable than other rounds, and it's very, very little recoil. There's a lot of competitive shooting on PCCs. I interviewed a couple folks that do that, and it's a blast.
Yeah, you want to do something. You want to do something funner than pistol, but you don't want to spend, $900 the money to do an AR.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, PCC is good. And shotguns, just their shells are really expensive too. So.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, it's inexpensive and it's fun. Okay, we'll go with that.
Exactly.
Yes. Have you anything new for you as far as?
I'm still got some stuff waiting for the tax stamp,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
But no, not. Man, I would love to. There's really not much use case for it, but part of me would love the new Sig Fury, the MCX or the MPX. That's the brand I know the least amount in terms of brand.
Oh, the spear. So
Yeah, thank you.
With the
Yeah.
6x8
Yeah, the one with the 277 Sig Fury. To me, that'd be pretty cool, especially the engineering behind it. Like, they were able to get 80,000 psi in that chamber. Like, that's insane.
Well, what SIG? They just had a SIG event where they brought in a bunch of. So they brought in a bunch of gun tubers and dealers, their top dealers, into New Hampshire, and they were allowing them to buy the SIG spear.
Really?
And ammo. Ammo is the big one.
The fully pressurized one, or
yes. So it's
there's a couple versions.
It's the training ammo. So it's not going to be
full powder yet.
No, it'll be a full powder. It's bimetal casing.
Really?
It's the bimetal casing.
I know that's the revolutionary thing about the platform is, I mean, for 100 years now, it's been basically copper casings, which if you want that extra pressure, now you need some new materials. So it's multiple.
So
metals.
stainless steel, stainless steel primer pocket and everything, and then the rest of brass. But it is that. But it's not going to be
there's two versions of that, of the bimetal, because one's the training, then one's the full blown extra expensive military one. And that's where you get the 80,000, the astronomical pressure and speed.
But I think it's a military overrun.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be the full pressure round, but it's not. It's the military overrun. So they had a contract and they went overrun. They're selling the excess, right?
How much? What's the price per round on that? Like $3.
The case. The guy let it slip on how much it cost. I think he said the case was $2,000.
How many are in a case?
I think it's 1,000 rounds or 800 rounds. I think those are 800 rounds.
It sounds about right. Because again, it's a lot more expensive to manufacture.
Yeah.
It's new tech. And I mean, that's the one thing because I mean, they have the SIG. If you want, you can buy it in a 308. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's already enough of the great battle-proven 308 semi-automatic rifles, battle rifles out there. To me, the really unique thing is the 277 Fury, which because again, new rounds, especially, they're actually successful commercially.
They were selling that last year. The spear.
Oh yeah, so they had. I talked to my local. You ever go to Rifle Gear?
Yeah, Rifle Gear.
Oh yeah, great mom and pop shop.
Mm-hmm.
They told me they got like 2 ever, and like again, they're.
I mean, was it last year or a year and a half ago? They had it on the site to buy on SEG. Yeah. And it was like almost $8,000 or something like that. It was like $79.99. It was like $8,000.
Naked? No optics? No nothing?
No nothing.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was like $8,000. Yeah. So now you can get the series, but it was like $5,000 or something like that. But, but at the time when it was first came out, and it was like when it was when the military was like, okay, this is the XM7, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's when they were selling it on their site, and I'm like, good luck trying to find ammo.
That's the issue. It's like, well, now you got to feed the thing.
Yeah, you got to feed it.
It's like that, and then finding it. And again, I mean,
it's worse than 6.5 Creedmoor, but
oh yeah. Well, I mean, Lake City Armory, they got the contract, and apparently it's big enough. They're actually building a whole new facility for it. Well, so they'll eventually have the mass-produced 277, where eventually we'll get it. I think in terms of every once in a while.
5 years from now.
Yeah, because you'll see it on a shelf once. Because I saw it once or twice, and I see the price per round. I'm like, jeez Louise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I think Olin Winchester has the contract right now at Lake City, and they're going to build it because it's going to take them. It's probably going to take them a year
to make the site
outfit facility with all that gear. Then it'll take probably 3 months to qualify the ammo.
Oh yeah,
and then they'll start chunking it out because I think it's like the 101st Airborne's getting the first set of spears. Oh yeah, and then they're going to get all the ammo.
I don't know. I think are they going to increase their weightlifting regiment in the military? Do you ever watch was it Forgotten Weapons? Yeah. His documentary, or he did a review of the rifle with the optic, with the loaded magazine, with the suppressor and all that. Fully loaded, it's like 14.5 pounds. Mm-hmm. That's a heavy son of a bitch of a rifle.
Yeah, well, if you want to move a piece of metal really fast, out of a short barrel, you don't have a choice.
True,
it's going to be a big bullet,
right? Now that's a really cool thing we're seeing too in terms of tech and guns, the suppression technology. Because again, now it's kind of a cliche. Every company's saying we got the backflow technology, which again, it's a marketing cliche. To me, they use the term too much. But it is fascinating and it's good because, again, there's less bad gases at the bolt area, so it's not getting in your face. So it's actually going outside the suppressor itself. But yeah, like I've been hearing stories about, a lot less recoil, and I haven't actually had to try an opportunity to have use one firsthand, but I've heard so many great things about them. And then of course you got the 3D printed ones. It's getting really neat.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go shoot, I have a couple of 7.62 suppressors or whatever. I don't have a 277 Fury, but it's amazing what that quote unquote reduced back pressure does in the stability of the gun. A lot of people, it's like, it's a silencer, makes it quiet. But
it's like Hollywood, right?
It's no, it's not like Hollywood.
Well, if it's a 22 suppressor,
if you're using 45 or 22, something that's subsonic anyways, and and you have a long enough suppressor, sure. But the stability of the gun. So if you have a gun that's heavy, has a lot of heavy inertia, right? So you get a lot of that back into the gun.
Yeah.
What a suppressor does, not just in quieting it down, but the stability of the gun while it's shooting. You don't get that sharp impulse, right? You get you get a good push and it comes back naturally back to zero, a whole lot easier than an unsuppressed gun. So if you do it on a short, it really shows you on a light short gun.
Oh yeah,
right?
SBR.
Yeah, like an SBR of what a suppressor does in the functionality of getting shots back on target, right? So the stability of the gun is where you really see it.
You got any fun toys you're looking at now? Or anything that's about to get out of ATF jail with the tax stamp?
Yeah, the B&T suppressor.
Yeah. So you got the B&T, but not the suppressor?
I have the B&T right now.
Nice.
Form 1's done.
Do you say that APC 9 or
APC 9 limited, yeah.
Nice. Those things are so much fun.
So I pick it up today, hopefully, and then shoot it today.
And you went SBR route, right?
Yes.
Nice. That's the way to do it. It was astonishing. I rented that for a corporate event maybe Q4 last year? So I got to take some promo videos with it. There's barely any recoil.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, so it's a blowback gun, so it's gonna be a little bit heavy. The bolt or the whole bolt carrier group is gonna be a chunk of metal, right? Yeah. That's why if you have a suppressor on that amount of metal that's recoiling backwards into a hydraulic buffer gets lessened because the gun's being pushed forward because all the gases are pushing inside that suppressor, right? So not only you get the effect of it being quieter, but the inertia going either way is kind of balancing itself out.
Yeah.
So that's why that was like my wife doesn't like shooting guns. She'll go with me every once in a while, but the best gun that she liked shooting is when they made the 4th event, right? Mm-hmm. So they have Star Wars event, and the gun kind of looks like a stormtrooper gun.
Oh yeah.
So they used that gun with the suppressor, and that was her favorite shooting gun because it was pleasant to shoot. Not only was it not loud,
not too heavy,
and didn't doesn't have a ton of recoil, no jolt, because that's most people that are not used to guns. The violence of the sound is one thing, but then the reaction, the recoil, and everything is what kind of freaks them out a little bit. And it was just like slight movement, and it's like, she likes that gun, so it's one of the reasons why I got it.
Did you go with the Glock lower or the factory lower?
It's factory lower.
Really?
Yeah. So I do have an PCC with a Glock lower, and it just looks weird where the magazine goes in, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's canted kind of weird. Where the APC 9 with it looks more like a UMP or something like that. So
it would go straight up if you have the factory one.
So yeah, got that. It's good. Good to shoot tonight. See how it goes. I got some suppressed ammo.
Nice, even better.
The suppressor and see if the one that I own shoots as well as the one that I've shot that somebody else's.
Right. That's always the real question.
I do want a 300 blackout.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I have a couple of 300 blackouts, but I want one that folds so there's no buffer tube, right?
Oh yeah.
So it gets fairly compact and can fit, as a truck gun or something like that.
Do they? Trying to think. Does the Honey Badger have that option or no?
Honey Badger does not. You still have a small buffer tube in the back.
Okay.
Right. So I'm looking at the Spear LT.
Oh really?
Or the other version they have it. So the Spear LT, you can get it in a 9-inch, or they have one that's called the Rattler.
Oh yeah.
That's a little smaller, 5.5 inch.
Yeah.
But it has a fully because the recoil assembly is in the receiver.
Yeah.
So looking at that, not cheap. Nothing from SIG is cheap once you get
No.
a government contract.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, that's good marketing because everyone wants the government contract, the military grade stuff. It looks cool.
And they really don't. That's another thing with gun manufacturers. If they do it, that's why HK is really expensive, whatever. Because once you go in and you start charging, prices on those guns that you sell to the government, they really don't want you to sell that to the civilians cheaper.
Doesn't look good. Doesn't make them too happy.
Yeah, it doesn't make them too happy.
Oh yeah, and again, every gun manufacturer, realistically, they want the government contracts because again, it's a lot easier to sell one contract of 100,000 guns than 100. They go through distributors. Then let's say 100 orders of 100 guns or something to that effect. So if you can just get that one big military contract,
See, that's the thing is, but it's almost as if they do it, you end up having problems because sometimes the government contracts are say for 100,000 rifles. They may want that 100,000 rifles over 3 years.
that's true.
Right? And then sometimes they okay, we're just going to execute the first two parts of the contract, not the last one.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, that's why LMT does a lot of government contracts, and they also sell, but they sell to other NATO partners. Their guns are exorbitantly expensive.
Where do they go? Are the ARs like 2,400? Where do they run for?
Well, if you get an LMT, that's like the Estonian spec version is like $5,000 or $6,000. Yeah.
For an AR?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I love those guys from Iowa, but geez Louise.
Yeah. So it's like, if you want to spec like the military version.
Yeah.
Right. CAC, same way. It's really expensive.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
something we talked about this earlier. Is they get really expensive, and they don't like it if you sell it cheaper. It's the main market, right? They don't like that. So it's like, if you want something that's equivalent, that's why the spears cost so much,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can get the LT version, right? The LT
Yeah.
spear. I mean, if you put them next to each other, unless you look really close,
You gotta be aficionado to really tell.
It's, right? So there's only a couple of differences. Like I think they're making a spear version that's going to be civilian,
Really?
but it's not going to have like they're so it's going to be functionally different. I think they said in the video that it's not going to have a what is it, the round,
I know they have
the forwarding,
the charging handle.
no, so the
Forward
thing on the
assist?
side you hit to
Forward,
push the bolt closed.
forward assist. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to have a forward assist. Right?
Which-
So it's like,
Yeah. I mean, Eugene Stoner.
yeah, I
wasn't
mean,
a
most
fan
people
of that.
don't.
Yeah.
Most people don't care about that. That's probably why they're removing. They're like, okay, so this is gonna be functionally different than the military version. We're going to take that part off,
There you go.
right? So, but everything else is going to be the same.
Would you ever want to own a Barrett?
Oof. I mean, rounds for a 50 cal round is what, $4, $5, $6 a piece.
Yeah, they get up there. Oh yeah. Unless you reload, then I'm sure you can do it.
I mean,
for
if
a
you
lot.
reload, that's a
Yeah.
whole other story. But then getting the brass, it's like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, where are you going to take that thing to shoot though?
that's where you really have to have like your own land or own a
Yeah,
range.
it's like if I lived near a Dismar ranch, maybe, yeah.
But-
yeah, okay, but
Like some ranges will let you shoot it, but it's also like a 25-yard lane. Like
if I really want to shoot 50, I'll just go to TG&E and rent it from them because
Yeah.
I'll shoot 50 cal in the bay. And I'm
there you go.
I'm okay. If friends want to do that and say, hey, we want to shoot that, I'm like, I don't need to buy one. I mean, it's like $8-9 grand.
Naked without
Yeah,
an optic
no
or
optic.
suppressor.
Yeah, no optic,
like
no suppressor.
Fully loaded. It's like a new car.
Yeah,
'Cause I know
exactly.
the M107A1 with the $3,000 suppressor, you're going to put a $1,200, $2,000 scope on
that.
it. You're probably going to want a couple magazines.
And
You
then-
can spare those.
Some ammo,
Oh, yeah,
bipod.
of course. Oh, yeah. I think it comes with the factory bipod, thankfully.
Oh,
Although I'm sure
they
they
give
don't.
it for free.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, I don't know. To me, there's something about like the pinnacle of firearm ownership being a 50 cal because in most state, on a federal level, it's the biggest one you can get without extra paperwork in terms of the size of a caliber.
Yeah.
And just the power of a 50 caliber rifle in your shoulder. Like, I don't know. Ever since I was a kid, like that just seems like the pinnacle. And of course, I mean, the price reflects that dream and that the awesomeness of it as well.
I mean, the crazy thing about it is when you shoot one, it's like you think the recoil would be harsh.
Yeah.
It's a push.
Really, I've heard it's comparable to like a 12 gauge. Is that better?
Okay, maybe without a suppressor it'd be
Yeah.
like that. But with the suppressor, it's a push. It's just like,
Really?
yeah, it's a push. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I've seen 5'4" women get behind that thing,
Really?
and it moves them a little bit, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a push, and it's like it's not that bad. A lot of times they realize like, oh,
Would you ever want to get a machine gun?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to get one. I still don't understand what the market is for a belt-fed semi-automatic $249, and they have those for sale for like $8,000. I'm like,
Oh no, well it's a military thing. They don't want to sell it to civilians for less than the military.
no, but they're semi-automatic.
I know, but it's.
I'm like,
It's
I
big.
don't see them doing this, charging the handle.
Well, you don't need
and
to charge it every time. You charge it once. It's still semi-auto. Like, and again, it's kind of rudiment. It's not the same thing, but you can get a binary trigger, so that's a little bit better. But like, yeah, like a Saul semi. Like,
yeah, I'm like,
I see them at the gun stores. They're like $12,000-$13,000. I'm like, at that price point, why don't you just set up your own SOT and make a manufacturer? Like,
that's what I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, I don't understand. Like 50 cal, maybe I can see
Yeah.
that more justifiable with that, but at Belfast, semi-automatic machine.
I mean, it'd be kind of fun, but I don't know. You'd have to be like an FN enthusiast to own every FN product to buy it, like a completionist maybe. But yeah, because I've looked at the reviews, because it is kind of again, there's something magical about belt-fed gun these days. It's very unique. None of them ever come cheap. It's kind of a cool piece of engineering. It's a unique, and it'd be cool to have one. But like, would I be willing to spend, like, because again, wait a minute, same price point, about $13,000 for the FN Saw, or $13,000 for a Barrett 50 cal. I'd go with the 50 cal. Because I mean, again,
You get your druthers.
yeah, you get the exotic ammo. You can have a little extra fun shooting old hard drives at the range. Like, yeah, it's a little more flexibility in that regard. You can't shoot it in as many ranges, but I mean, there's so many options for a belt-fed 5.5 or a shoulder-fire 5.56 223 round. Like, there's a lot of things that can do that. There's not, relative to the 50 cal, there's not as many, commercially available 50 cal semi-autos out there.
Yeah. Like a machine gun round, I'd almost rather go like M1918.
Oh,
cal,
yeah.
30 cal Buffett.
That-
Nostalgia of it.
Oh, of course. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, partially because I'm a gearhead. Part of me would love like the historical provenance of having like a General Motors manufactured like 50 cal. That'd be pretty cool. Maldus, full auto. And of course, you have the old grease guns from the guy, GM had that division. And
There's a lot of people that said they'd rather have the M3 grease gun over a Thompson.
well, the Thompson again, it's fascinating. From
I'm like, makes sense.
I mean, the Thompson's heavy as
I know.
hell.
I'm like, if you ever held a Thompson and then tried to shoot that thing,
Oh yeah.
and it's like, and then shooting M3 grease gun, I'm like, yeah, I can see an M3. Why would somebody would rather have an M3 grease gun?
Do you ever hear like the price comparison between the two?
Oh, I'm sure.
It's
I'm
like-
sure the Thompson's probably way over the top.
I think at the time, don't quote me on this, it was about $250 to the U.S. government in the 40s. And the grease gun came in at like 30 bucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
30, 45 bucks. Yeah,
It's like GM did some good things.
yeah, because it was.
The guy Lamp Division stamped those things out.
I mean, it's like literally a tube, a big block of metal, and a spring,
And
a barrel,
and a rudimentary safety.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a bolt, just stick your finger in that slot and pull it back. And,
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's pretty simple. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Sten gun was pretty nice.
Oh, yeah, MP40.
MP40.
Those are still going for like $35,000. The veterans are brought them back. That's a great investment.
Yeah.
It's like $35,000 for like minimum.
I wonder
for one
how
of
much
those.
you would pay for, a good condition SCG 44 would be.
I mean, that's the original assault rifle.
The
Like that.
original,
There's-
quote unquote,
Yeah.
assault weapon.
Then
Assault rifle.
Mikhail Kalashnikov. Kind of. There's rumors how much tech did he borrow from that, but like,
Oh, Grand was his inspiration.
oh yeah, man, those things look so much cool. I've never had the opportunity to shoot the STG 4. I mean, a
I
lot
shot
of,
it once.
Oh, really?
Blanks.
What
so.
did it feel like?
Nothing like, oh, it's like really cool in this. But it's, other than the fact that it was, built at that time and it was basically the lineage start of what we have now. I mean, it shot fairly okay. The ammo was the problem.
Oh really?
I get the 792 Kurtz ammunition, but
Oh yeah, that's our issue.
that's why it's really tough. But that's the thing is since so few of them remain, it's hard to, because if you end up having a problem, right? Because this was stamped out late war, right?
Oh yeah,
So
secret project.
you're not going to have one that's just like flawless.
Yeah.
Like you put a full mag in, and it's going to dump the whole thing and not have a problem. Maybe somebody has one that they've
Safe Queen or
tuned
something.
it.
Yeah.
They've tuned the thing and kept it in good repair. But it had stoppages and whatever. It's a neat gun. I mean, really neat. Kind of from what I remember, because it's been quite a long time since I did that. It wasn't light. Let's put it that way. It wasn't
Yeah.
like an AR, right?
Oh yeah, AR's all aluminum.
Yeah.
So that thing, And back in the day, you'd have to lift some weights to get that thing going.
Yeah. I mean, most of the guns from that day and age, because they're shooting much larger cartridges,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, like an M1 Garand was not light. I mean, the only thing light back then was the M1 carbine. That's about it. But yeah, it shot really well. BARs are really cool too. I love that BAR.
Oh, have you seen the H car?
H car, yep.
Yeah.
Heavy counter assault.
Those things are so heavy. Like I lifted, I got to handle one at the show, and man, the stippling is really aggressive on the forehand, which again you want because again you don't want to lose grip of that. But I mean as a dad would say when you put the straps down on a truck, that ain't going nowhere when you hold on to that thing.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
But it's so cool that Ohio Ordnance still makes those types of things.
I mean, they make machine guns. They make all sorts of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, good. At least somebody, small org doing something.
Because again, most of the major machine guns, like a lot of them are major manufacturers these days. Like the big ones, FN, SIG. Like, unfortunately, not Colt so much, but they're around somehow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm trying to think of who else other makes a GPMG or belt fed outside of, at least for the Western countries, outside of FN.
I forget. I'm embarrassed to say that's
HK maybe with the G3 or whatever, but
there's one company that made the belt fed AR. It's eluding me at the moment.
Oh yeah, niche item, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like 5,000 without the lower, like just for the assembly. Like those things get up there in price.
I'm wondering if they still make the M2 Browning because it's been around for so many long. I just wonder if they have somebody built that.
I think FN still does, but like in terms of like independent.
Yeah, I don't think any independently anybody's making any.
I don't Ohio Ordnance, but that's really it. I think they still make Modus. Yeah.
Modus, right?
Yeah.
Good for them.
I mean, they have the one of the sad semi-autos still go for around 20 grand to 25 grand online, which would be awesome. But again, the use case of where do you shoot it, and then also it's semi-auto. It's like click 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 every time. Like, kind of takes away from the mystique and John Browning's original design and.
Like 240, 249, any of those are still probably made by FN. I don't think anybody else outside of them make it.
I want to say, was it Barrett or Dan? I'm leaning towards Barrett in terms of they had a modernization of the 249 that they introduced to the military, where they kind of cliche to say, but of course, shaved some weight, changed it a little bit, improved on it. I want to say they've sold a little bit.
It's like everything. FN makes everything, so they made the the M4. M16, so they make the 240. And I'm like, does anybody in the United States make any of the weapons used by our military? Or they all been outsourced to Belgium?
Well, legally, technically they're in South Carolina because military contracts has to be made in the USA. But
same with SIG in New Hampshire and Glock and Georgia.
But FN's they have one of the longest heritages too. I mean, people don't realize Belgium doesn't just make waffles; they make awesome firearms too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like out of a small country like Belgium.
Yeah, but it is kind of sad because Colt. I mean, you read the books and the history of the company. It used to be like Google back in the day. I mean, they had innovation technology. You came there, you could work there for life, great benefits, and you hear the stories or you read the stories where it's like, even if you got to a certain age where like maybe physically you couldn't do it, they'd find a job for you, like sweeping floors. They made sure they took care of you, and you could still contribute to the company in a different way. But again, mismanagement, lack of innovation. It's sad to see it.
Because they were
bankrupt a couple times.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, their innovation really was at the mercy of what the U.S. government wanted, right?
Yeah.
So because they're doing government contract, they really should have. It's probably controversial. They really should have moved out of the Northeast a long time ago.
Oh yeah. Well, Smith & Wesson famously last year moved to Tennessee. Like a lot of them are. It's sad because a lot of the history of the United States and the heritage of the firearm manufacturing community was all up there.
All up there. Yep.
And yeah, with Colt, it's sad. They've gone bankrupt a couple of times, and
I still have a Bushmaster too.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah. M4.
Yeah,
clone.
And one of the most ironic things about the AR-15 is sold to the civilians first because that's where Colt found the most people were willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and then the Air Force bought it, yeah. But yeah, it's one of these things like they should have. That's something what happens when you're sold work to the to the government.
Yeah. And I mean, those AR-15 contracts kept them in business forever. And just 8 or 9 years ago, they started to lose contracts to other companies for the AR-15, which was their bread and butter. Which ironically, again, they didn't make it. I mean, Armorlight made that ironically in California with Eugene Stoner, genius of an engineer over there. And then of course, Colt came along, bought the patent, and the military didn't want it, so they produced it for the civilian market. And then there's a general in the Navy who made the first major procurement that changed everything. His name eludes me at the moment, however. And then military uses it to this day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's a cautionary tale. I would tell anybody that gets into government contracting, don't you fail to realize that you can be replaced.
Oh, yeah.
The government can go with somebody else,
Yeah.
even for the product that they're buying from you exclusively in the beginning.
It
If
might-
somebody else makes one that's equivalent or the same or whatever, they will find the lowest bidder, right?
Change might take a while, but it is inevitable at the
It
end
is
of the day.
inevitable. So it's like, so when you do government contracts, you have to be aware that's not the end all be all
True.
of what should be your business model.
Agree.
So that's, Colt mismanager or what have you. On top of that, they also, they thought they were in vendor lock-in.
Yep.
And no.
Not so much long
Yeah,
term.
no.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Jamie. I appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
man.
Thank you for having
Glad
me.
to have you on again soon.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Don't forget, Topping Talks is also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Don't forget to take the time to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and have a great day. Topping Talks.